Sorry, I'm recording.
What did,
like you just like I'm sure I don't know.
plumbing guys, what did they have to say?
Oh, they're gonna come back and repair it. Because he had to buy also a pressure relief valve for the water heater in here. He's got a couple things for me to do. So.
Okay. Are they pretty reasonable? Because I think I have a water leak at home myself. In the garage, there was a little bit of puddle going right by the fire stuff.
Uh-huh.
And it seems like the brass fittings leaking somewhere in that. I just noticed it right now.
Oh, really? Yeah, I mean, they seem to be pretty reasonable. Yeah, Tommy River.
Because I don't really know any good plumbing. All right.
Okay.
I'm sorry, how long is the subject? 2 hours. Well, I think because everyone learning is good.
Handout, or is the handout following what we have, we can send it later, or what's
Yeah, the handouts are just they're gonna follow everything that we're gonna go through. And then I just sent you guys the copies of the user guide if you want to email that out as well, like the full thing, and then essentially you can use as well, so that can be announced. Oh, that's right, for the season. I like your birthday, you're so I love it. So great. And then we have people around here.
I saw somebody had figured out why she broke all lines with Santa Claus.
Oh, there you go. I've seen some really deluxe like rhinestones and all that.
I literally like every fingernail in my
Oh no.
Oh, no, mine is they're real. I think I had it, yeah.
Oh, I'm running official Wednesday.
Well, they're saying the 14th, and I really think, because we're just gonna approve the letter today. So I think it's probably gonna be closer, and, with the dates that we're doing this, when are people, the vendors gonna be calling them on Christmas Eve, so it's gonna have a soft close down. I think the vendors,
The vendors will be notified.
the vendors, I think, will start being notified either, a little bit before that. They're gonna start with
Oh, okay. Okay, so just officially then, that's awesome. Okay, great. Yep, so we'll get started.
All right, everybody, we're gonna get moving.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me. My name's Jennifer Pertee. I'm one of our managers of training and development over at our Irvine office, and we've been having a lot of fun with Avid. Yeah. So I think you guys will too. Yeah. So today I'm going to guide you just on the whole system. It's pretty intuitive once you get in there. I understand that you guys haven't used the web-based, accounts payable process yet. But I think that you'll really like it. I think it'll make things go a lot quicker. We previously used a different accounts payable program that was web-based, but the transition has been really well received and everybody's really been enjoying it. So I think really once you get in there and get the hang of it, you'll really be excited. So yeah. And so we have, as you can see, lots of training materials for all of you on site and on the phone.
Cindy?
We'll make sure that you get an email with all the PowerPoint.
I hope we don't have
We'll
a
have
major
a
print
user
to do
guide
this
emailed
morning.
out to you guys as well.
I think so.
It'll go with
Don't
everything
print up
just
any
as in depth
newsletters or anything
and
like
even
that.
more, but I'll go through today.
On this
And then
webinar.
there's also
Don't
the
print any
traditional
newsletters.
I understand.
sheet
I
as
just,
well.
why does
There's
a
going to be
webinar have
portion of this
anything to do
Avid
with the?
Because the
workflow
noise of that
process
thing.
sheet.
Oh,
But this is just for a handy kind of quick reference of some of the processes that you can go through. So just for reference and some of the trees of America for our training materials. So there you go. But all right, great. And then and what I'll do as well is for those of you online and anybody that wants to ask questions, just at the end of each segment, I'll see if you guys have any questions. And I have Mary Beth and Bunny here, so I'm sure we'll assist with any questions or answers if I'm not sure. So all right, so we'll get started. Here. All right, so for you guys, so the launch date, I believe it's going to be kind of a soft launch. It's going to, the site's going to be active December 14th. So it's this coming Monday. I can't believe it already. So yeah, you'll be able to access the system then and log in. But for those of you who like, what is AvidXchange? It's this web-based program where all of your invoices are going to be scanned and uploaded. So you'll be coding, and processing everything through the system. So it's just going to be really a nice reference for all of your invoices. You guys are going to be able to search for your invoices on here. Great historical reference, easy access. And since it's web-based, you can access it from any Internet Explorer web browser. So if you're at the beach on the weekend, you're like, oh, gotta code some invoices, you can do it. He's like, that's right. And you'll also hear AvidXchange called different things. I just refer to it as Avid, but there's different parts of it, like Avid Suite, Avid Invoice, Avid Inbox. Essentially, it's all Avid. There's Avid Pay, but all these different things, they're just different parts of the program. So just in general, you hear Avid, just think of this. So for all of your vendors and for you guys too that just receive hard copy invoices, like I was saying, everything's going to be scanned. You'll see the actual invoice image in the system. So yeah, it's really neat. So I'm going to show you how to go through and view everything in code and do that. So we'll look through here, and I think that you guys will enjoy it. Some of the benefits of using Avid, it's just a very streamlined approval process. Like I said, approve anywhere. So yeah, even for the holidays too, maybe down at the beach. It's a one easy login to get in, and then if you can actually see the steps of the process, the approval process. So once you have it in the system, if you code it, you can see where it is in the system and who is dealing with it. So if you have accounts payable or a different department handling coding or like a special GL code or request, you can see if it's pending approval, if the process is complete. So everybody can be on the same page. So it's really convenient and it's nice that you can all see what's going on with a particular invoice. And then so we have kind of just like frequently asked questions. I'm sure you guys have a lot going on in your mind here. So we're kind of going on over what is AvidXchange. It's going to go over how AvidXchange receives invoices. There'll be a specific email address that vendors will submit invoices to and particular PO boxes. Those are still being determined, so those will be sent as an update to all of you. But what if you do want a copy of your invoice? You're like, you know what, I always have a record for myself, and I'm used to vendors maybe sending something directly to me, and I keep a reference of it. They will all be stored in here, but if you do ever want to print a copy or save a copy electronically, you'll always have the ability to reference it from Avid itself. And I think this might be a little different. Is this the same kind of process for you guys too? Okay, great. So, so if you're wondering, hey, how do I do petty cash or get an expense reimbursement? That's all going to go through Avid as well. So essentially, anything with invoices and reimbursements is going to be processed through Avid. So it's going to be really quick approval, and then you'll get money even faster. Ooh. And so if you're kind of wondering too, well, what's going to happen to all the existing hard copy invoices? I know there's different processes going on, but managers aren't going to be responsible for uploading anything that comes in. So from what I understand, the accounting personnel is going to take care of the process. Lucky Oscar. And so I just kind of referred a little bit ago, how am I going to know where an invoice is in the process? I'm going to show you guys that today, where you can see the history tab, when it was uploaded, who was handling it. So it's super convenient, and I think you guys will really enjoy it. And then something, vendors aren't going to be, maybe not everyone's familiar with using a web-based system like this, so they might be, curious, well, are they receiving my invoices? How is this working? What's really nice with the system is that they actually get a confirmation email about 15 minutes after they submit it, so they can always refer to that too. And same with you guys too, if you're submitting on behalf of them, you'll get the receipt. So that's really nice if anything ever happens down the line, like, well, is it in there, or should they even look out for a check? You'll get that confirmation, so you'll know that it's all valid. And then, so another big question too is, how long does it generally take for an invoice to reach what we call your queue? So all of your invoices are going to be your special queue, going to hold everything that you'll need to process. So how long does it take? It's generally 24 business hours, actually just one day. So if I submit it today, it'll be in there tomorrow. The only exceptions with that is if you have an invoice that doesn't fulfill these certain requirements that all invoices need to fulfill, that can generally take 2 to 3 days to get into your queue. So it's between like 1 and 3 days that you'll generally see it. So it's a pretty quick process once you get it in there. So just a heads up on that. So if somebody submits it and you're getting calls from your vendors, you can just make sure that you give it this amount of time before you're concerned. You're like, oh no, they got the confirmation email, and now I know it's going to be in my queue in up to 3 days. And then today, too, throughout the training, I'll be talking a lot about Avid portal admins. And those lucky folks, they're going to be Mary Beth Scott, Jody McDermott, and Oscar Arenas. So there'll be a lot of things that you'll be routing to them or perhaps asking them in the system. So when I say Avid portal admins, it's going to be one of these 3 wonderful folks that you can refer to. And then so after today, for a while, who you're going to reach out to for training or technical assistance on Avid, it's going to be the wonderful Mary Beth Scott with her beautiful Christmas outfit. I love it. So, so Mary Beth's going to be here for you guys for any kind of training, or if there's any glitches with the system, like what's happening, Mary Beth's going to be taking care of you guys in that aspect. And so for the frequently asked questions, do you guys have any questions on that?
Reimbursement. You go in, you log in form, but the backup. That what we're giving to upload?
Yeah, so you'll have an actual form. So for reimbursement, so you'll have a reimbursement form, and then what you want to include in the same PDF, so you'll scan it all together. So you have the reimbursement form and any receipts or anything like that. You want to make sure that you include everything in the same PDF, because sometimes it's tempting to just upload everything as separate PDF. But what happens is each one of those pages would be recognized as a separate invoice. So anything that's regarding one invoice, you want to make sure it's all in the same PDF. So that's really important, and that's a great question too. So
Yeah, okay, you would scan it fast. So whatever it's for that.
The invoice has to be the first page. So as long as that's invoice is the first page, so your backup behind it.
Yeah. So invoice always first page, and then backup stops just right after that. great question. And then so submitting invoices, like I was referring to before, there's actually a team from Avid that handles your uploading of your invoices. So you're going to send it. It's going to be something like whatever it was. It's like FS Residential, Avid, at avidbill.com. You guys will get that information shortly. But that team from there, what they do is they take a look at your invoice. They're going to see the invoice date and all the important information on it. So the invoice amount, who the vendor is. They're going to code it that way. So you can see all this information, like the invoice date, anything pertinent is going to be viewed by them and then uploaded into Avid based on that. So in a moment, I'm going to go over invoice requirements that your vendors will have to fulfill. And it's really important that they do fulfill all the requirements, because otherwise, if they don't have a clear picture of what the association name is, they won't be able to route it to the correct manager. So it makes sense. It's just such that if it's not on the invoice, they're not going to be able to process it. So just once they do that, once they have all that, they can be uploaded correctly to Avid. And then something else that's going to be great too is even if you guys don't have to process utility bills, you're going to be able to view them in the system. So if you want to see, like for waste management or anything like that, you're going to be able to search for it and then view it in there. You don't have to process it, but it will be in there.
And that may be not good rollout.
Oh, okay, so maybe not initially, but eventually, yeah, it's going to happen. So yeah, give it a chance. Maybe after the holidays. There we go. And then so here's the invoice requirements. And to my understanding, this will also be included in the vendor letter. So the vendors are going to be made aware of all this. So if they know where to send the invoice, then they're going to be able to view all this information because it'll be all in the same message. So here's just the main requirements that they need to fulfill. So you want to just make sure if they have any kind of PDF or invoice, if it's just a basic invoice with backup documents, they don't really need to worry about the size. But it's 5 megabytes. It's pretty large. Something else that is very important is one invoice per PDF. So what we've experienced before is that some vendors use a lot, so they'll have a lot of different invoices, and it is a lot more convenient to just scan and submit into one PDF. But you want to make sure that they understand that if that happens, all that the Avid team is going to see is that first invoice, and then think everything else is a backup page. So when they submit it, let's say they have like test 1, 2, 3, 4 is their invoice, and then they submit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I have like 20 invoices after that. They're going to be calling you and they're like, hey, I submitted this, I got my confirmation email, how come it hasn't been processed yet? And then you'll even search for it in the system and you won't be able to find it either because all you'll see is that one test 1, 2, 3, 4 invoice. So it kind of takes some getting used to, but just really push when you speak with your vendors, make sure they do that one invoice per PDF because otherwise it's just really confusing. And I mean, it could, once you look up an invoice, you can see the multiple pages that belong to it. But yeah, so just something that's really important. But after that, should be good to go. And then also, so as Oscar was saying before too, make sure that the invoice with any, that's serving as any backup documentation or that has any backup documentation where the invoice is the first page. So always make sure that's the first thing that's seen, and then receipts or minutes or anything that's going to serve as backup documentation is after, but all in the same invoice. And then some basic information too that the invoices need to have, of course, excuse me, the property name, generally the sales code for that property name, and then of course the service address. We always want to make sure that the vendor name is included. I'm sure that the invoices already have this information, but just to make sure, the vendor's name, the remittance address, the contact name, their phone number. The main points is that it just has to have the vendor name and that remit address. Otherwise, how do we send the check to? Oh, they want to be paid. So make sure that's on there, like the account number for the community, and then of course the invoice due date. And that's just all pertinent information that the Avid team needs to upload it into the system itself.
What's a contract?
It's usually the number that's just related from the vendor, like to the association. So if there's not like a really valid one or something that's really clear, then you don't have to worry about that too.
PO might be their invoice number.
or whatever they want to use. Yeah. And the entity number, how are we getting that to them?
It will be in the, attachment to the letter.
In the attachment that we're sending to the vendors, we'll give the entity number. Each association has an entity number. We're trying to get them to put it on. If you guys kind of picture one, Avid has rolled out across the country. So you get some national vendors that are sending that. Then you get the state design offices. Then you get multiple vendors, multiple offices, Irvine and the same vendors. So we really have to try to make sure it gets in our queue. And that's why we're going with all entities, the entity numbers, property, the the address if they can. As much information as possible, get it in the right spot.
And because of chaos, they will address it to chaos, maybe
Yeah,
or
it's not just chaos, it's anybody with a similar name. Chaos being one, they might just say chaos, Brighton. We need, Brighton, I don't want to, Brighton 2, is what we.
And we kind of experienced that a lot too. We even have like Icon Owners Association and Icon Community Association, but one's up north and one is in San Diego, so it can be pretty confusing too. So yeah, if they can get that entity number on there, it will save a lot of trouble because it'll be routed to your queue as opposed to somebody else's queue.
Yes.
The question is, are the entity numbers the same as what we have now? And the answer is yes. Jennifer, we have a question repeated so they can hear it.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. We can know.
My vendor can't write their invoice bill.
Okay.
Are they going to be asked to?
So the question was, for vendors that handwrite their invoices, so they have to have them, printed out. As long as they have all the information clear on there, because I know sometimes it's like, what is that? Hieroglyphics. Yeah, as long as it's clear, then that should be fine. And then so something too, there are some vendors that they'll have duplicate invoice numbers. You want to make sure that they know that every single invoice number has to be unique. Otherwise, it's just going to be rejected. And that's because then they'll think it's just, they're trying to get paid a couple times. They accidentally submitted it before. So just make sure that's clarified. Statements also won't be processed. They'll generally just be returned or that will be communicated to the manager, but they'll have to get it in the invoice format or it was all submitted individually. So there's lots of different factors on that. We have the big guy there.
Write that down.
I was repeating my
Some of our vendors, they don't even use invoice numbers. We generally just put in a due date or the date of the invoice. Is that going to change? Do we have to train them?
The question was, what about vendors that do not use invoice numbers? Yes, I believe they need to use invoice numbers.
Yes, they'll need to have an invoice number.
Because because you're going to end up with, if that vendor sent 2 invoices that day, what would you use? And then you're going to run into that they're going to think one is a duplicate. So I think the vendors are going to have to be, trained that they need to come up with an invoice.
Keep in mind, even if they're handwriting an invoice, you can go to the drugstore and buy an invoice pad with nothing, and they have sequential numbers and use that. I mean, it's not that great.
We got a couple of handies, right?
I know, they can go buy a.
Numbered, it should be easy.
Yeah, so they'll put it in the blank too.
Anyway, here we go.
And then something else to keep in mind too is that for people that maybe are not used to having invoice numbers, that they don't start submitting to Avid with like number signs or all these different kind of things in the file name, because otherwise it could prevent it from being uploaded because it's just, if you do like different periods or different extra characters, just technically it can't be uploaded. So if they just write normal numbers, they'll be good to go, but just kind of keep in mind those special characters could prevent it from being uploaded.
Is a dash considered a special character?
No, dashes, yeah, so
Okay, I
dashes
know
are
there's a
fine,
lot.
yeah, I know those are widely used. So dashes are fine, just, like exclamation points, maybe they're really excited, finished it, here. But, yeah, just make sure they don't add it in there.
Keep in mind that all the protect you, what they're gonna do is run the vendor name and an invoice number, and they're looking for duplicates on that invoice number, that's all it is.
Mm-hmm.
So really will reduce duplicate payments, because we can kick out of the system saying TLS with this number, this association, we've already paid.
Mm-hmm. And then something too, especially, hopefully they'll all be submitting by email, is to have them not submit information in the body of the email or in the subject line, because the Avid team's not looking at that, they're just looking at the invoice. So if the vendor kind of includes like a full paragraph of like, this is what it's for, and this is what the invoice number is, and this, they're just not too mean, but like, they're like, I don't care about that. I'm just looking what information is on the invoice. So if they have anything special to say, just have them write it directly on the invoice. And then invoice rejection. So if something didn't fulfill all this, all that information that was needed, does it just go into a black hole like this one? The good news is that it does not. So like anything that's ever submitted and viewed by the Avid team is not going to be just thrown away like, nah, they didn't try hard enough. Like either the vendor will be updated or they'll be contacted, or you guys specifically will. So nothing will ever just go to the void. So I should have put a cross out there. There we go. And then this is just kind of an image, and we'll go through the whole thing of how it works. It's the paper invoices, and we scan it, and then who it's delivered into the system. So just good old Avid technology. And then this is just kind of emphasizing how our invoice is going to get to the Avid team, either by mail or email. I would really push using email because obviously it's just so much faster, and they'll get paid that much quicker once you're able to code it and process it, and the check can be cut. And then just once again, the Avid team never ever holds invoices. So if vendors start saying like, well, it probably was just thrown away, it's like, no, we want to pay you. So yeah, so just make sure that everyone understands that's never the case. All right. And then just a bit more, and then we'll go into the actual system itself, and I'll show you all how it's going to work. But the basics, so not initially, but you're going to be able to view in utilities that you previously had to refer to in GenArc or different ways, but now you can view everything in Avid. It'll be all your invoices plus all the utilities. And this might be different here, but usually it's not for like the phone or internet or cable and that kind of stuff. You will be paying that through Avid, like homeowner type refunds or like kind of tax information and stuff too. You won't handle that through Avid. It'll just be offline, so that'll be separate too. And something too, so how does the system check for duplicates? So it's just those invoice numbers, especially if it matches the same dollar amount. It's a really sensitive system, but it's a good check. But if sometimes an invoice is kind of recoded something different and the vendor is like, oops, I never got this paid, so I'm going to put it as a different invoice number and resubmit it. And, you have so many invoices. Maybe you process it or get through somehow. GenArc also double checks that kind of information too. So if anything ever kind of comes through that is a duplicate, it generally will catch it. So there are fail safes, but if something does look really familiar and you're like, you know what, I don't think I feel comfortable processing this in Avid. I feel like I processed it via hard copy before. Just double check GenArc just to see, because GenArc is like the be all end all of what has been processed, because that'll have all the check information. If anything is ever processed offline, meaning not in Avid, it will still be in GenArc. So GenArc is still your best friend for checking information. So just spinning, 2 flags. So something else I'm going to be referring to today are workflows. So workflows, it's essentially just a series of steps of how an invoice is routed through Avid. So generally, there's just going to be a standard workflow for all invoices. So for pest control, get your invoice, nothing special has to happen with this. I code it, and then it's going to be off to have a check cut. But there are some invoices that might need special approval. So maybe if you have an invoice for $100,000, somebody on a higher level will have to approve that. So what's kind of neat is that Avid recognizes that invoice as a certain dollar amount, and once you code it, it will route to maybe a VP, and they'll have to approve it, and then it goes off to have a check cut. So it's just kind of those kind of things where the system actually recognizes special situations, and it takes care of it for you. So you don't have to go get a physical signature on something that maybe you would have had to before. It's all going to be taken care of through the system for you. So it's pretty cool. Something else too is that these workflows, there's a little handout that I provided people in person. These are ones that you'll have to manually do, but we'll go through all of these, and for all of you online, so you'll be able to visualize what I'm referring to. So just a heads up, when you're like, what is a workflow? That's essentially it, just the steps that this is supposed to go through. All right. So are there any questions on that? Mm-hmm.
What about typically contract with a $100,000 contract paying payments on it? Right now we have that full contract that's back up in the folder, the invoice monthly. Where will that whole big contract be when they do their payment plan? You know what I mean? Do they have to attach it every time, or how will someone know that it's part of the payment plan and there's a big set contract in there?
You can actually attach it. That's a good question. I'll have to double check if they want like the whole contract in there or not, because.
Do we have an answer for that?
Usually we have the contract attached each time.
They reference it every time. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're big.
Right, but it's PDF, so I mean, they could attach the invoice. The important part is, we can get it once, that's fine on the first one, and we can check afterwards, because we will be checking before payment to make sure we have a contract. So if it came with the first progress payment, the more important part of that is, many times we get a contract that does not have invoices. So we have to have invoices to pay on. So each progress payment, we should get an actual
So you're
invoice.
saying we're going to scan it with the original, and accounting's going to verify the
Because we're going to
original?
have to verify for anyway.
The original contract has one number, and the original invoice has one invoice number. Every progress payment after that is going to have a separate invoice number. Yeah, it should still refer back to the original contract, right?
Yeah, it should refer to the contract, but it should have separate invoice numbers. And it should be, if you have $5,000, $20,000 payments, and they shouldn't all come in at once, obviously. They should come in as you, or they can come in and you would approve when that work is done.
And for those of you online, the question was if it's the same contract, the invoice numbers will have to be separate. So remember, all invoice numbers have to be unique, regardless if it's for the same contract or not. So let's make sure that yes, definitely, yeah. So you can, so you can do like 1, 2, 3, 4A, 1, 2, 3, 4B for different things, yeah. Okay, great.
How do we get the check when we are going to lock on the vendor on that progress payment and everything being done? Will the check go strictly to the vendor?
Yeah, so the question was, how do we do that? The answer is, when it gets your queue, you're going to hold it. You're not going to approve it. Then you're going to go do your walk. Then you're going to come back and you're going to approve that payment. Then it's going to go.
Because the vendor may have opted to get an ACH or the credit card payment, so it may not even be a check.
Okay.
Yeah, to answer the question, you as a manager will never, 95% of the time, you won't touch a check again.
Cool.
Yay! Merry Christmas. Well, great. Well, great. So now that we kind of have all those bases covered, I'm going to show you guys Avid itself. Yay! So I'm going to go into a live version, but I just want to go over a couple more things here. So accessing Avid, you only can use Internet Explorer for the web browser, because other web browsers are not fully compatible with it. So you'll be able to log in and see things. You're like, what is she talking about? There are certain features that actually just won't show up at all that are really pertinent in processing invoices. So it'll just be missing, and you might not even recognize it. So just always make sure that you're using Internet Explorer. It's just this web browser here. It's just this URL address. So I recommend even just saving it as a favorite.
And she's not kidding. I spent 2.5 hours at home when we were first doing this, frustrated in the middle of the night, and it was because whatever web browser I got on my computer at home was not Internet Explorer. So I was trying to open things, and it was not, things wouldn't show up that I should have. So, yes, you definitely want to use Internet Explorer unless you want to be frustrated.
Yeah, and then something too, there's a little caveat. So even if you do have Internet Explorer, if you have version 10 or 11, which I think this office does, you want to just make sure, I'll go down to this part. There's just this really simple step that you just have to do like once in a while. If you ever clear your internet browsing history, you don't have to repeat the steps, but it's pretty quick. All it is just adding AvidXchange on your compatibility view settings. So it's essentially just telling Internet Explorer, like, yes, I trust this site and I want to see all the content on it. So because we found that in our Irvine office, I'm going to show you guys this thing called an ad hoc drop down where you try to find people's names. It just doesn't even show up at all. And we're like, we're so confused. You have Internet Explorer, but it's because of this. So if just make sure, that might even want to be the first thing you guys want to do is just set this as a favorite and follow these steps and just make sure that it's in your compatibility view settings, and then you'll be good to go.
Neem is aware of this, and he's going to be working with the computers to make sure that everything has this.
Oh, great. Yeah, and it's really quick too. So, yeah. And then for your login credentials, the first time you guys are going to log in, your email is going to serve as your username. So it's just your full first service email address. And then your password, this is actually a bit different, and perhaps this can be included with the update for the AvidXchange email address and PO boxes. It's actually going to be this email. Let me see, I should actually just type it in for you here. So this is what it's going to be the first time, because I had updated incorrectly in your guys' PowerPoint. Because that's what's going on for us now. All our new users have this default password sent to them through the system. But for you guys, you actually get this as your password for the first. Yes, it is case sensitive, and this is kind of tricky too because generally, we spell exchange with EX, so I would do that forever. I was like, AvidXchange, why is it not doing it? So please note there is no E, so it's just AvidX, giant X, change, and then I'm not super excited. There's actually 2 exclamation points. So it's AvidXchange, 2 exclamation points. So yeah, so just use that, and then you'll be able to log in. You can answer security questions, and then after you do that, you'll actually be able to click this little button in the future that says I can't access my account, and it'll send you an email with a reset password. But you do have to log in with all this information first. If you do this 5 times incorrectly, you'll actually be locked out. Because it's possible, this is a tricky one. So, but what's nice is that one of the Avid portal admins will get an email and notifying them that you were locked out, and they can send you a link to reset your password. So
Starts with dumbass.
yeah, so try not to do it. That's awesome.
Create a new password for that.
Yeah, so Jenny had a great point. So you guys will be prompted to create a new password right away. So really tough to know this one. So yeah.
And don't try to log in until we give you the go ahead.
Okay.
If we go live, don't try it yet because it's not quite where it needs to be. It's not cooked.
Waiting. Yeah. So just a heads up on that. So that'll be your login. And whenever our internet compatibility, and then just something different too, just like in any kind of program with different types of users, you guys will have different user access levels, but generally everyone will just have the access, to process their own invoices for their community. If you guys ever need to have somebody else on your account processing invoices, that can be set up for you too. So it's pretty nice. You can have multiple users as we call them primary approvers on an account. So you'll be able to have, say Mary Beth and I, we're like, hey Mary Beth, I'm going to go on vacation. Can you code all my invoices for me? She's like, of course. Oh, there we go. But what is nice is that you do have the ability to do that. So none of our things like, well, if I'm gone, how's anyone going to see my invoices? you'll only get invoices that you're linked to. So the Avid portal admins will make sure that each of your accounts are just linked to the properties that you work on. So it's just tying it to your account. So you won't be able to see everybody's invoices, just your own, unless it's that special kind of setup. And also with invoice notifications, those days that you don't really want to log in, 5 times a day to see if anything new came in. What's nice with Avid is that you won't get a notification for every invoice you get. You'll only get one summary email a day, just listing all of the invoices that are in your queue. So maybe if you are on vacation or something and you're just curious, like, let me see how many are in there, because that's what you want to do when you're on vacation, or if you're sick, you'll get a notification. So it's kind of nice. In our old system, people got invoice notifications for every single invoice they received, so it's pretty nice. They'd be like, hey, you have an invoice? Hey, still need to process it. Hey, it's still there. And that'd be for every invoice. So this was a big win of like, hey, just one summary notification. You can change it if you want to get multiple a day. I mean, the goal is to log in and do your invoices at least once a day. But if you want to just see a summary, it will come to you. So it'll be nice. You'll get that. So now after all that, does anyone have any questions? Go right in this.
This will probably be more for way back. The proxy, are we gonna automatically have our supervisor as a proxy? Or is that, are we just waiting? Yeah. That's gonna be a definite.
Yeah, it's not a question we figured out.
Yeah.
Figure that out.
Currently, what do you do? I mean, if you were on vacation, does Jen approve them or does Dave? Something. Depends on the supervisor's there.
There you go.
Yeah, if something is like urgent, and then it depends on it, and done what she can do, or if it's something urgent, that they will. So I didn't know if that was just, we'll have them as a proxy, so that way if something did need to be done, then somebody automatically. Well, I think there's not an automatic proxy.
Yeah, it's not automatic.
You have to assign a proxy.
No,
Yeah, I think, yeah, I think that's an answer
Right,
for.
we're gonna have a couple questions, we're gonna have to think through and answer.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
From an accounting viewpoint, I leave it to you. I don't, it doesn't matter to me. Everyone used to.
Conversation, guys.
So we can go in and look at utilities, so if we wanted to see water bills, are we able to print from there or email from those pages? Like if we.
Yeah. So the question is, if you want to go in and look at utilities, can you print or email those invoices or that? And you definitely can. Yeah, it's really nice. And then,
But not the original rollout, that's down the road.
Yeah, we're holding utility until the beginning to figure that out, and management fees as well. Okay, so we're holding those two. Now keep in mind, you'll be able to go into this system and get it. You also go into Jenner and grab it as well. The scan is gonna transfer over, so you're gonna have it in two places.
And later on too, I'll show you guys this really convenient way too to run a report, and you can have the whole history of what happened in Avid, like how it was processed and who did it, along with the invoice image as well. So you can run those kind of reports too. It's really convenient. All right, everyone, we're gonna get in there. Yay! So I'm gonna show you this home tab. I'm gonna go over all the different things. So this is what the login screen is going to look like. Remember, it's going to be your email, your full service email, and then that AvidExchange password for you. And then after you log in with this, after the first time, then you can click I cannot access my account. So if you do lock yourself out, don't try to cheat the system and do this because it won't recognize that you're in there. So just make sure that the AvidExchange for the password the first time. Then we'll get in there. I don't want to save my password. Oh, no. Okay. So this is going to be our screen here. So we have, this is our home page. This is going to be your default page every time that you log in. So I'm just going to go over the different features here. So for some reason, someone went in and processed all my invoices last night. Yay! I uploaded them before I left, and I'm like, hey, team, I'm going to be training tomorrow, so don't process them. But they did. So, thanks, team. But however, at least they saved one, and they put it in this cool queue for me. So generally, when you come in and you have invoices for you, it's going to be in this pending approval queue. So they'll all be listed here, and they'll look just like this. So it's nice if you log in and there's nothing there, it'll have a nice message like, hey, there's no invoices waiting for you. And then you can go to Starbucks maybe, yes, and celebrate. Yeah, so there's no invoices right now there. But if I ever dispute an invoice, meaning I just need to wait a few days to process it, but I have several in here, so I just don't want to get confused because I have that vendor walk that I'm waiting for, and I don't want to process it right away, but I don't want to forget that. I'll show you guys how to dispute an invoice, and all it does is create this little queue for you. And so I'm just going to wait for that vendor walk. Once I go in and I have the walk, I'm like, okay, now we can pay them. Then I just come here and I process the invoice from here. So that's pretty nice. So just a heads up on that. So that's our pending approval. If I don't dispute any invoices and they all just sit in my pending approval queue, which you guys don't have to use this dispute feature, it's just for your convenience if you want to keep it more organized. But if you don't dispute any, then you won't have a queue sitting here. So if you're missing this, don't worry, it's just not there until you dispute an invoice. But what we do have down here, every time you log in, is this invoice search, which is very convenient. There's a lot of different options for searching for invoices. So you have the invoice number, but maybe you don't remember that. What you can do is actually search for the vendor name, which will be in there. You can type it in, which I recommend because there's going to be a lot in here. But you can see just the different names here. Those entity IDs or vendor codes, that's what it looks like in here. So you'll see that there. There's different things that we don't use in the system, like purchase order, requisitioner. Like, what is that? Yeah, we don't use that. But you can search by community. So if you do manage multiple properties, you can search just for community. You can pull up every single invoice you want for that. You can do it based on status too. So if I want to search my demo HOA, you'll see all of them listed here, but you'll only have access to the ones that you work on and that you're linked to. But we do have invoice status here, where if I want to see everything that's been approved, that's pending approval, so maybe it's that 100K invoice, I want to see, hey, did somebody approve it yet? If it's just fully approved, unprocessed, if it's been voided, so deleted from the system. A lot of different options. You can search by invoice date, just by vendor in general, invoice amount, the entity code, that's what these kind of codes mean. So yeah, very convenient thing here. Batch status, that just means, batch means that it's been collected by accounting, and then I would just send off to GenArc, and then you're going to have it, it's done in Avid. So you can check that too. So if you've seen something that was approved, you're like, let's see if it's been batched. You can come in and do that. So you can check there. So pretty convenient here. Later on, when I show you how to generate the reports, it's going to be based on just this invoice search. So it's really handy. And then you can also just do a quick search like, I don't want to come all the way down here. You can actually just search for the invoice number up here, very basic. Here's a little message center. This, just a heads up, this invoice administrator link doesn't work. So just if you're like, I'm going to get support through this page directly, just don't use this. You're going to want to, I'll go over the support model that we have set up for you guys later, but just keep in mind this doesn't work. But you'll also have, what you will have here is the email address that's going to be set up for you guys for your vendors, so you can have it for easy reference, like, hey, this is what it is, guys. Something that you can access, though, is a thing called the Community Center. You can see Community Access, Community Center, they're one and the same, but this is information, it's different articles and wikis and blogs and videos, all about Avid and how to do basic use, like the basic use of it. They might talk about some processes that aren't applicable for you guys here, but just like for the general use of the site, you can view them. Last news. Oh yes, go ahead, Jody.
Write it down because it's not ours.
Yeah, so sorry. So this is the one just for us. You guys will have a separate one.
Sorry.
Oh no, yeah, that's a very good point. Because you're like, hey, I thought that was going to come later. I'm like, surprise, it's here. No, this one's just ours, so please, disregard that one. So that's just the home tab, so pretty convenient. I'm going to come back and show you guys more invoice stuff in a moment, but I do want to show you my profile. You guys won't have the Avid inbox feature, so you'll just have home and my profile. This is where you come and you can update your password, What I really recommend doing once you guys log in is to make sure all this is correct. Sorry. So your email, your phone numbers, make sure your time zone is correct too, because generally the default is Eastern Standard Time. And if you don't change it, then what's going to happen is the history for all your invoices is just going to not have the correct timestamp. So if you just go in, you're like, okay, what am I gonna do first? I'm gonna get Avid, put it as a favorite, make sure my internet compatibility settings is good, and then I'm gonna log in and just make sure all this is correct. This is where you can update your approval notifications. You always want to make sure you keep it at least once every day. That's a requirement. But if you want to add more for fun, you definitely can. And then something else you really want to double check is make sure your associated communities is correct. So you want to come down here and ensure that your communities are listed here, because if they aren't, then you won't receive invoices for them. So let's make sure those are correct. The level portal admins are going to be linking those. So if you have any issues with these, then you can reach out to them and they can do that for you, because you won't have the ability to change that yourself. So yeah, just very simple with my profile, but just be aware that it's there and that you have community access and different means of support through the system itself. And did you guys have any questions about those tabs? Pretty convenient, all on one screen, easy to navigate. So now I'll go over here. So let's just pretend it says pending approval queue. So you'll see the information that's available. So this is the information that's populated by the Avid team. So they come in and they're like, okay, there's the invoice number, there's the vendor ID. So they have a vendor code. But here I see in this instance, it's unqualified vendor. So this will be something to note for later, because we don't want to click this and just approve it if they're unqualified. We're going to send that off to the Avid portal admins for fun. But just keep that in mind. If you see this, it's a big red flag, so just don't code it and approve it. But that's just a mental note for these. We also have our invoice date, the amount of the invoice, the community, and then what part of the process is it in. So you can see the action here. And on behalf of, you'll see this blank the majority of the time, but this comes into play when you have a proxy approver on your account, or if you're serving as a proxy approver. It'll have the kind of owner, the original manager's name on here. So if it's somebody else, but now it's in your queue, you can easily distinguish, like, oh, okay, these are Mary's invoices, and then these are Tim's, because I'm going to cover his too, because I'm so nice. And then there'll be another one that's just blank, so you can tell that's for you. So just a feel there.
In our case, unqualified vendor, 99% of the time is going to mean the vendor is not in our, or it had been disabled in GenArc for some reason, it didn't come over with it. When we put them in GenArc, this is going to automatically update. It doesn't mean we have insurance. That will come later. So unqualified simply is going to mean it doesn't exist in our system.
Well, we can assume somebody's working on it. We don't need to do anything. We don't need to contact the vendor.
It would depend. If it's the same rules are going to apply that have applied all along. And if it's a new vendor that you've brought in, you should be getting the vendor package. So no, you shouldn't assume that we're doing that. So if it's ABC pools that we've never heard of before, you should be getting a new vendor package for it. So actually, more likely than not, yes, you should be doing something, because we wouldn't know they exist.
Is there a page for notes?
Yeah. And so I'll definitely show you. There's and I'll show you how to actually. It's the thing called ad hocing, or it's just really the same as routing. It's just the fancy term for it.
Yeah, another.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just real quick. I just wanted to make sure, because I'll show you guys the steps on how to handle these when they come into your queue too.
For instance, the company vendor is one I used maybe 2 years ago, but because of whatever the processes were with GenArc, you guys removed it because it hasn't been used in 2 years. So I'm using them again.
Usually we don't inactivate in GenArc unless there was an issue with the vendor. So that shouldn't happen. If it does, we'll have to figure it out. So you could do what you're talking about, the ad hoc, and say, I know I've used this vendor in GenArc before. Can you figure out why they aren't over here?
Yeah, but we did recently, last year, but there were a bunch of old vendors. We started reviewed them and said we had to go ahead and use them for years. We got rid of some of those. They might have followed that.
Okay, and Chris?
What about the invoice that has multiple codes on it? You know, they have work with it. Probably
another
So it's
GL.
more lines on the.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. I'll show you guys how to code that too.
She's gonna show you how to.
This is just a preview. Oh, yeah. So this is just the summary screen, but I'll go into view it too.
And you can sort by those headers.
Yeah, yes, definitely. So if you do have a whole bunch of invoices in here and you wanted to sort by invoice date, because you just want to clear out the newest one, what you can do, you can sort anything that's hyperlinked in here. So you can click on invoice date, and if I had multiples, it would organize it in the order that I wanted by ascending or descending. And you could do that by invoice number, vendor ID, any of these, and even on behalf of, you can do that as well.
I think the logic would be you go in and sort by community, and then you kind of focus on one community, you have their GL, the code, then you do the next. I think it's logical.
Yeah. Because what happens too, once you get in, if you have several invoices to code, once you're done with one invoice, it'll actually bring you to the next screen. So if you sort it like one insane by community, the system will naturally just bring you to the next page, the next listing in your queue here. If you weren't really ready to go in a queue, there are different ways to view the invoice. If you wanted to just look at the full thing here, you can click on it. So these are just different ways to view it. So usually, there we go. You can see the full image. If there's different pages, you can view them here as well. But you see it opens up in the same web browser, which is pretty nice. It doesn't require anything else to look at it. This is just another way to look at it as well. This little box with the arrow, it just shows, this is kind of how the Avid team looks at it, and this is the information that you'll be able to view once we look in the invoice summary screen. Just different ways to see it. So if you have a preferred way, you can. But my favorite way is just clicking the invoice number itself. This is how you get in to actually code it. On the invoice number, it's hyperlinked. And then you'll see here that you actually have the image of the screen. This isn't usually the default with it there, but you can pop it out. But it's just that here's the invoice image itself. This is exactly what was scanned. You can see all the different pages. So this is going to make it really easy to verify, the invoice number and the code, because you want to make sure that everything that was here was entered into the system correctly. So this is the invoice summary screen, and so this is mainly what you guys are going to be looking at and dealing with. But one of the first things you want to do is view this header tab. So we have a header tab here with all the information, which I'll go over more in a moment. And just so you can see here, this is a separate tab. It's distributions right underneath it. And this is where you're going to code. So just a heads up before we get into it. So living those materials alive. So I come in here, I open my invoice. What I really want to make sure is correct is that vendor information. So once again, there's that invoice number. Up here, it's usually going to have the full vendor address too. So if you have a vendor that has multiple offices, it's nice to just confirm like, oh, okay, this is using their Upland office and not their Santa Clarita office. So I want to make sure that the correct location is going to get that check. So you can verify that here. Here's the invoice number. You can click here to see the invoice image again. You're like, you know what, I do like that full screen of the invoice. I can click it there. We have the status. So right now it's disputed. That just means I moved it to my disputed queue so I can have it out of my way. But from here, I can just process like normal with no problem. The invoice amount is here. Invoice date. Based on it, because it's a test one. We also have this thing called invoice posting date. So this is essentially like the future pay date. So say you get a whole bunch of invoices at once from one vendor, but they just need to be paid throughout the year, or maybe it's just 3 months down the line, but they submitted it. But it's a long time to just have it sitting in your queue. So what you can do, if you're like, you know what, this isn't the date that I want it cut, what you can do is just click on this drop down and a calendar comes up. And you can change it to any time that you need to. So let's say that this is going to be, I want this processed in January. Make sure you change the year before then if you guys are going to use this in the meantime. And then you can set it there. And then all you do is just save and make sure that all your changes are saved. So you're always going to do save anytime you code, and if you're going to do something else or change the invoice posting date, always click save. And you'll see some fields are blank too, like memo, separate check. All this information here, that's naturally going to be blank, so don't be concerned when there's nothing in these fields. Different regions use these all throughout for service, but at least in California we don't use them. So that's original purchase kind of date, that kind of thing. Something you do want to make sure there is there though is the customer or the vendor ID. So you can see that's our demo one. So that's the red flag too. It's like, oh, that's an unqualified vendor. I want to make sure that I get this taken care of properly and not just approve it. There's a customer account number. Not every invoice is going to have this. This is just based on whatever the vendor has for your community. So if they have a customer account number associated with your community, that will be listed here. So it's not something we assign, it's something that they do. Mm-hmm.
Avid, people put that in, or we go in and look at it, notice it's not there, but we know that number should be added.
You actually won't have the ability to add stuff on here. So you guys won't be able to, the only thing you'll be able to edit in the header field is this invoice posting date. But in a bit, I'm going to show you guys how to, if anything's incorrect on here, like, hey, that's not the correct invoice amount because I just verified it here and it actually is 160, we'll pretend, and it has 134 here. So you do have the ability to get this changed. It's just you can't do the manual edit yourself. So I'm going to show you guys how to route this off to the admins to ask them to change it.
Jennifer, the community name, I thought when we were looking at it, Jody, the community name is up there.
No, yeah. It's actually on this distribution tab, so that is one thing I think is bizarre. So it is something that you do want to verify, and that's a very good point. So when you're verifying, you can come to this distribution, and you'll be able to see that entity code we're referred to. Excuse me. So it should be listed here, and then you can say, okay, this is the test entity. If for some, and you can kind of hover over this too, you can see my full association name is Sample Homeowners Association, and then in parentheses it'll have the entity code. But if for some reason this isn't pre-populated for you guys, just a heads up. Sometimes it's not. You can just click add and it's good. So we'll go over that more in a moment.
Because yesterday we did some training with James Valentine.
Okay, great.
And it will allow you, if Avid puts it in and put it in for Brighton and Etiwanda, and you didn't notice that, and it came to you because you're Brighton and Etiwanda, but it's really a Brighton 2 invoice, and you just put Brighton 2 here, it's going to cause a big problem because it's going to think, is it Brighton and Etiwanda or is it Brighton 2? And it will cause a big accounting problem. So that's something we're going to have to watch, especially for your group and then.
Oh, well, I'll show you guys the process.
Yeah, they ad hoc it.
Yeah, and then the dispute is something where you think if something's wrong with it, I naturally think, oh, I'll just dispute it. It's a trick. I don't know why they use the word dispute. So, but I'll show you guys that like ad hoc will be the term where if there's anything wrong with an invoice or something that you need changed or taken care of, you're going to ad hoc it or route it. This thing's interchangeable. Ad hoc it to the Avid portal team. So I'll show you guys how to do that too. So just keep in mind, don't ever process anything that has incorrect information. So if you're verifying here, just keep a note of, okay, I'm going to need to route this to somebody to have one of these fields changed. So that's just our header. But something too with this customer account number, if you have a vendor that does have an account number for you, something that's really convenient is that this little magnifying glass here is going to pull up any related invoices to that customer account number for that association. So we only have one here, but if you have multiple, you'll have the whole list of vendor invoices for that community listed here. And you can click on the hyperlink invoice number, and then you can view that one too if you need to. Like, hey, this looks really familiar. It looks like the invoice actually processed last week. I want to verify that if this is the same service, I want to make sure that I, don't approve this one. So just a heads up. And once again, if you don't have something listed here, don't be concerned. Not all vendors have a customer account number for your association, but if you do, it will be listed here most of the time. So that's just our header tab. So just remember, verify all this information with your invoice here. Really convenient to have it down here. Toss this to the side to make it bigger. But say all this invoice information checks out and I do want to code it. So instead of having to manually write it out now, what you can do is now come to the distributions tab. So I want to distribute the dollar amounts to different codes or even just to one code. Hold on a second. Oh, did you have a question? Oh, okay, yeah. So this is the place where you're going to be coding. So generally, you will just have the one code here. Sometimes, for some reason, it doesn't pre-populate this code line, but all you need to do if that happens is just click add, and it'll create a distribution line for you. So every time you're going to have the entity code here, it's going to be test. So remember, that's the place where you can verify if that is the correct coding for the invoice. And you see down here, the stays here the whole time. So it's really convenient. Now this is where you're going to insert the GL number. So what you do is actually start, you have to make sure this please edit goes away. Something that is kind of strange is that naturally I think if it's highlighted, like in Word or anything, if you start typing, it's going to override it for you, but it doesn't. So what you want to do is just kind of get in the habit of clicking the X and make it go away. And so you might want to have a copy of your financials on the side to see the GL account. But what actually happens here is if you start typing the number or what type of GL code it is, it will actually show up in a drop down for you. So if I start typing 1, okay, so it's going to have 50 per page, but then these are just this is based on the budget just for my community. So it's not going to be everybody else's. It's going to be limited to what you have in your financials.
We're not doing that.
Just kidding. So it's going to be the process for you guys. Do you have anything to say?
And it's a different one. And once we put the budget in, we're going to the 2016 budget. We're going to be emailing everyone a PDF, so you will have it in your email. You can put wherever you'd like. Leave it in your email. You can save it on your the S drive, so that you will have a electronic version of your budget. So, okay, I'm in approving Canterbury at Indian Hills. You can go pull that PDF up and see what account numbers they are. But you will be allowed. I know they did not do that in Urban. We're allowing them. And Rick, I think you've done this. You suddenly have mulch. You didn't ever have mulch. It's not in the budget. So you want to add, but it's definitely mulch. So the mulch line is out there because there really rarely do we have to add a new general ledger account because there's a gazillion general ledger accounts out there. So you'll just type the name of whatever you're looking for, and you should be able to find.
So it's important to have your financial with your budget comparison. So you're using your GL. And there's a couple landscape extras, landscape upgrades, you put it in the wrong place.
So if I understand, so all of the GLs for everything are going to be in here? Oh, okay. So that's a great point then. All right. So these will not just be for your community, they'll be for everyone. So that's great. Just be very cautious of what you're selecting on and make sure that it's aligned with your financials. So you can see how I started typing it. You can also start typing the word as well if you want to. If you want to type like B or anything like that, you can. So we'll do some guest services. So you can see that's your GL account. To add a description in here, so the GL describes actually what the code is for. So I can hover over it again, guest services receivable, cool. But you can type a description here as well. And this is a 20-character map. So you can do something, you can add in the date or a very specific of what it was, but this is your opportunity to add this. And at least for us, it shows up on the statement. So
So you will be getting from us helpful hints, because I would like you to put things in there, like October landscape contract or something. Because what happens if you don't put something in there, when it goes on the check or in the general ledger, it simply defaults to the name of the general ledger account. So we will be giving you some helpful hints. It's 20 characters, just something that means something to you and means something to us, that as to what exactly it is. Fix sprinklers or redid the pool pump or whatever. Just a very short, meaningful sentence, and we'll give you some examples. We've got them already.
We'll be doing it instead of account doing it.
Yeah.
And there's no spell check, as you just saw. I couldn't spell sprinklers, so just make sure that you spell correctly. And then something else, this next field, it isn't required. If you only have one GL line for the invoice, then you don't have to worry about it. Making another line or doing anything like that, but it always defaults to 100. Let's say that you have different codes that you need to use for this invoice. You can just do add here, and then you can update it here. So if I want to distribute 50% of the total balance amount to this code down here, all I do is type 50%, and then you can see it's automatically distributed for me, and it repeats the descriptions. You want to make sure you change that, but then you can just update all these fields. So you don't have to use a field, just remember that it's there for you. It's kind of like a fancy thing. Ooh, no math for me.
We can update the amount.
Yeah. So like for the majority, you're gonna update the amount per line, but just know that it's there. If you're like, let's check my math skills from, you know, 7th grade, but.
Utilities
Mhm.
So, and remember, like meter number, just 6 to 1% to 1.
Not at this point. At some point in time, as I said, we're not going into this quite yet for utilities, and they have an actual utility module, but that's down the road, probably sometime in 2000.
But to answer your question, that
No.
that's
But Rick's gonna love this because he has 66 and 34. Rick and I have those pounded in our brain because he has a bunch of invoices that are split in that percentage. This is gonna be great. I don't know that anyone else will particularly care.
Home on their utilities. Are their
No,
water.
yeah, I'll explain to you why they can't use them.
And something to note too is you do have to allocate the whole amount. So if it was an incorrect invoice amount, you're gonna have to, which I'll show you guys how to do, void the invoice and get a new one from the vendor. Unless, are you guys gonna accept ad hocing it and adjusting the invoice amount?
I would, no, we're gonna go with what you're doing,
Okay,
and that is the vendor needs to give us a new
Okay,
corrected invoice.
Okay, great. So, yeah, so if you do have the amount and you're like, ooh, that I'm not actually going to pay this whole thing, and I was just going to enter in, you know, the only amount I was going to pay. But you'll see that there's a remaining amount up here, and it won't let you fulfill approving the invoice if this amount is not zero. So it's nice too, if you over allocate the amount, it'll say negative, you know, $27 or something like that. So, so I'll go over that process in a bit too, but just do keep in mind that you can't just, you know, change the invoice amount here by just short paying it. You're going to have to pay the full amount, whatever's listed here and whatever's been listed in this header tab. So the system is trying to save you trouble of, oh, you know, they're not thinking that you're intentionally not trying to pay less. So I'm just looking out for you here. So I do have this, and if I'm all done with the invoice and everything looks correct, all I need to do is just click approve and it would go away. But I'm not going to do that since someone stole all my invoices that I asked for. So this is what we're going to work with. So what you would do is just click approve, and then it would leave your queue and you'd be good to go. Avid would actually bring the next invoice in your queue on that summary screen to the just right in front of you on the screen now. So it would just move along the list for you. So it'd be pretty convenient. But say I had some issues where, you know, I didn't want to pay that full $134. There's this thing called ad hocing, which I've been referring to. So I have that full dollar amount, but maybe I do need it changed. Where you would do that, it's not some simple thing. Everything could be void. Normally, you'll see a dispute button here, but since it's in my dispute queue already, that's why it's not showing. But you're not going to use dispute. I thought forever, I'm like, dispute, I'm just going to click it, but it won't go anywhere. It'll just go into that queue that's on your own page and no one can help you with it. What you want to do is come down to this tab, and it's called workflow, because you're going to be changing the standard workflow. You're going to be routing it to somebody else. So I have the workflow here, and that's what we're going to be referring to in this little handout here, just the different steps. And then for you guys online, just once again, we'll make sure that you guys get this little quick reference guide that we're going to be going through. But there's just different instances, like maybe you do need a GL code. Actually, just kidding, they're all going to be in there, so you're good.
So there's an occasion where a board comes up with that they want, you know, a GL code called Tuesdays something, you know, where we have some of those really unique ones. And so you would do it for that.
So we have this here. So it's this workflow. So if I need a GL code or something like that, and I need to route it to somebody, I would just go, okay, now I need to assign the ad hoc approver. But just think of that as I just need to assign this. Who's going to help me? I need to route this off to somebody that can change any of this information for me. So be it the customer account number, the invoice number, maybe that's incorrect, the invoice amount. All I do is click assign ad hoc approver, and it's going to bring me to a separate screen. And then this drop down is actually the thing that doesn't show up if you don't have the correct web browser or Internet Explorer compatibility. So this should always be there. So if you're on a computer and this isn't showing up, know that it should, and that you just need to have your settings updated. But from here, there's this drop down, and it's going to have everybody listed in here for you. But you can see there's infinite people. You can do more records. You'll see it here. Hopefully you guys will have, like your stuff will be brought to the top of the screen.
And we're gonna put some, things in like that say AP manager change the amount, you know, a user won't be, let me say Mary Beth, it'll be a user, we discussed this yesterday.
Oh, okay.
That will tell them kind of, okay, this is who it should go to.
Okay, so you guys, everybody just keep I can't even talk. Keep an eye out for that kind of new list of names that you guys will get specific to everybody here. But you'll see, you'll have stuff like this, like for AP manager rushes, like for rush kind of payments, that's what we have. AP lead invoice changes. For you guys, you'll have something similar where the name will essentially tell you what it's for. So it's nice. So in this case, if I needed just something changed in the header, I'm like, oh, you know what, that customer account number was incorrect, or I do have one and I need one added in. All I need to do is just click this invoice change because I see it's that kind of basic change. And then you just type in here the comment of exactly what you need changed. And be more specific than anything, because this is somebody on the other end that's just going to change it based on what you're asking. So it's just important to be very specific here. And what's nice is that anything that you do here is actually recorded in the invoices history. So later, if you look up this invoice or somebody else on your team is looking it up, or you're just trying to find, the status of it, I'm going to show you guys a history tab where all this is going to be recorded. So you're like, oh, okay, I actually did change. I requested that the customer account number be reflecting this instead. And all you would do is just click assign. So if I'm like, please change the customer account. Oh, no, that's checking in. Number. Oh, and then to whatever it's going to be. And then you can just click assign, and then based on who you selected here to route it to, it's going to send it off to them, and it's going to leave your queue. So you click assign, and then it goes away. One caveat that we have found, though, is that until you refresh your screen, you're still going to see the invoice, but so please only ad hoc to one person. So we found like magical things that people have come up with to do. So we're like, why? What do you think of that? So if you still have the screen, please don't do anything else with it. Just you're done as far as you're concerned. You can go home, and then you can come back and select another invoice, or just click this little refresh button here, and it will bring a new invoice for you to work on. I'm sorry, go ahead, Jody.
I'd like to ask, I think isn't this where, say they have a project and they normally don't go to the board for approval, but they want to, the specific board member says, oh, well, you know what, I want to see the invoice on this project. You would ad hoc it there, send it to that board member so they can see it, and then when they approve it, it would come down.
And your board members will be in there. The board members in particular will be assigned to the properties that are the people who are going to approve them. Even board members will be out there, even if they don't sign. We used to do that even if we always sign their checks, and but they wanted to see it before you approved it. Oh, don't you approve that invoice for fixing the swimming pool because I'm going to go over and swim in it first of all, or whatever. So you can do that like Jody said.
And yeah, so this, and we'll pretend this is a new invoice, and now we're, oh yeah, this is an unqualified vendor. So I coded it, or I did everything I was supposed to, but I can't click approve. You technically can, but please be mindful that if you click approve, it's just going to be routed back to you because it can't be processed. Because like, who's the vendor? We need to get this taken care of. So do you have a question?
Yeah, I think so. Right. You said that we would be able to, what do you call it?
Ad hoc
to the board. Are we going to have the option to send to either the entire board or just individuals? Because she said just do it once. So what option?
You could pull up all of the board members that are in there. So yeah, you could send it to 4 people.
Will it be considered an association or a list of all board?
So it's in
You're going to have to, it's not by association.
Yeah.
She'd have to go through and find all of her board members.
Understand that we can do that more than
well, for ad hocing, no. So for the workflow here, well, I'll show you guys. So for we'll come back to the unqualified vendor.
Not that much, just out of curiosity, that the board requires on. I don't review any bills, but that one I want to. It's pretty rare, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we do have different technical workflows. So for us, we have some communities where every single invoice is required to have the board approval too.
Yeah.
So So what we have, if you do have a community like that, you can actually have your association set up where every invoice you approve, you don't even need to ad hoc it to them because it's automatically going to route to them.
Yeah, so if we have a second signature required, we're gonna have them, we're gonna set it up that they automatically, after you approve it, it goes to them automatically.
And then we also have,
You're gonna have to tell us which one. We can do either, but you're gonna have typically one person approving it there, the rest can view it.
yeah, and you should check too to see if you can do the whole board because for right now, for us, we have it where you can send it to the primary board approver and then after they approve it, someone else on the board it processes to them. So it's not even to both at the same time. Yeah, so it's one at a time. We have it set up to 2, but I'm sure that if they can set it to 2, I'm sure they can set it to all of them, but it's only one at a time. So it'd have to be like Paul and Bob and somebody, but they have to have their approval first,
Yeah, and yours would be specifically set up that board member 1 that's gonna approve is Jim Smith. Then it goes to board member 2, and once Jim Smith approves it, who's Paul Ryan, and so forth and so on. So yes, you could do that. I'm not sure why, but yes, we could.
But if you do that, I'm waiting for the approval for all 5 of them.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. I don't know why you would do that.
Yeah, because that would take quite a while.
Are we looking for approval from 5 board?
No, I think it's more of the board. I got a couple of emails from some of my boards about your letter, and they said, this is like fantastic, I loved it. I'm gonna be able to review it.
They want to see it.
Oh, okay.
They want to see it. That's a different question.
So board members, so if board members do want access to this, they do need a special account. So I think, would that be Mayor Beth?
Yeah, and we'd actually add the board members in. We have to update them, obviously. The board members are in there.
Hold on. Let's separate the question here. You've got approvers.
Mhm.
Okay, that's where it's going to be automatically routed to a board member. In some cases, rare cases, 2 board members approve. Then you've got the system where board members can come in and just look at this and look up a vendor and look at trade bills. That's 2 separate things.
And the board members would have to manually search for it. So it's my understanding, so come January when we're all back from the holidays, we're going to hold a board member training. So for all those board members that do want to get in there and review, they could be a part of it. For all those that want to be approvers, I'm going to show them how to approve too. They'll have more basic, it'll be coded for them, it'll be routed to them by you, and then I'm going to show them how to either agree with it and approve, or how they'll route it back to you for any changes. So that's just going to be an option. So those are, if it's an automatic workflow, it'll just go straight to them. But this is just for if you have a community, or maybe it's not every invoice they want to approve. Maybe it's this one-off, maybe it's with pest control. So like, they charge us so much all the time. I just want to make sure I'm the one actually giving the secondary approval for that invoice. This is how you just do that one-off, I'm going to route this invoice to you. So for here, so we'll use that as the instance here. So here's the workflow. I would assign ad hoc. So it's the same process every time, but here you're gonna find, Paul Ryan in here, and you can just type his name. It'll have their name, and that's actually one of our board approvers. I would do that, and then you can write a note to them too, because on our end, I'm gonna train them how to look at comments. So if you guys have any comments for them, you can type them in here, and during the training, I'll say, oh, hey, your manager might have a comment for you, so you might want to check this section as well. So you can write them a note and click assign. Then it's off to them. Something else with ad hoc though, if you send it out, it's kind of like a boomerang. In my PowerPoint, I have all these boomerangs, that's why. If you send this out to them for final approval, it'll come back to you too. So you can just see, like, okay, they did approve it, now it's back here, I can click approve, and it'll go off all the way.
Oh, so if there's a secondary approval, it comes back with the manager again?
And not in every single instance.
Only the ad hoc.
Yeah, only if you ad hoc. Yeah, but only if you ad hoc.
Only if you do it, will it come back?
Yeah.
All the ones that are automatic where your board's going to approve it?
Yeah.
You go from you to approval, automatically then they approve it, to accounting to approve it to get cut.
Yeah. So just think, so anything manual you do here, most of the time it's going to come back to you. If it's automatic, don't worry about it. It's not going to run.
I think most of the ad hocing is going to be to accountants.
Yeah, so that's mostly like the main thing. So
I think the biggest one is going to be, and Rick, this says Four Seasons, it's not Hemet, it's Marietta.
Yeah,
that will be
going to be very specific.
Yeah, this will be
not just this isn't my community.
Right.
Or I mean, you can too, and they'll have to look and do further research. But if you know which community community it's for. So this would be the same thing if it's incorrect community. Yeah. This is for, like I was saying, Icon owners, not Icon Community Association. That will come back. With instances like that, it'll just be routed to the manager. So it's kind of,
It'll go through accounting.
yeah, so
Because
then,
we have to change that beginning, to make sure the beginning is now Marietta and the coding will be Marietta.
yeah. So just remember, if you need any changes made, just think, I have to route, I have to ad hoc to somebody else. And this is where you would do that. This is the same thing for unqualified vendors too, though, which is very, very important because you can still click approve. And we've had that a lot where it's like, you're doing it in a hurry, you're not verifying that the vendor information is in there correctly. I thought it was unqualified vendor and ZZZZ. Like, but you know what? I just coded it. I'm going to click approve and maybe it will happen. But it won't process. So if you see unqualified vendor, it's in these little workflows too, so don't feel like you have to memorize all these steps. What you'll do here is when you guys have the username set up, right now we have insurance coordinator vendor changes for us. So we have a longer process on this, kind of it's cumbersome, but your guys is going to be more simple. I believe it's just you're going to be just routing it for them here, and you're going to write, receive the vendor package or have it qualified, and just write the information here. So if you see it's unqualified, right, hey, now they're qualified, I have the vendor package, and I submitted it to who I needed to submit to. Is that correct?
Yeah, like if you would submit the vendor packages to us just like you normally do if it's a new vendor. I think the vendor unqualified, as I said, 99% of the time is going to be a new vendor, and you should kind of recognize it because you went, oh yes, I got this new vendor to fix the pool, Jim Smith. So yeah, now here's his invoice. Theoretically, you should have gotten us the vendor. Vendor would be there. If you didn't, now you're going to have. This is a really good way, I think. You'll see it rather than us having to come and go, oh, Sonia, I've never heard of this vendor. So now you'll see that it's not and go, oh, what I need to get, or maybe that vendor didn't send. I need to call that vendor and have him send his vendor package to account.
Yeah.
Are you just looking for account right now? I'm sorry.
Actually go to the bash.
So the question was if are the vendor packages going to go to accounting, but they go to Sebastian?
Yes, Sebastian.
So,
It's in accounting, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Then we'll forward it to me, I'll forward it.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so same process with the vendor, give it to Kim, she'll give it to Sebastian, and it'll get updated.
Okay,
Same
great.
process, yeah.
So same process physically, but just through the system, make sure that you route it and have them updated.
Kim, do you get a electronic or do you get a hard copy? I think it would be really nice if we make Kim get an electronic and then you just forwarded the electronic onto us. That
Well,
would
it
work.
changes the system, so it goes to Kim, it goes to him,
Mm-hmm.
he changes it, and then I go back into my thing, will it change from unqualified to qualified now?
Yeah, so then it will be qualified.
Once he enters it, we think, yeah.
And then are you guys going to have it route back to the manager, or from there is it just going to go?
No, I think it should route back to the manager for
Okay,
approval.
so for verification. Okay, so yeah, just remember when you do that, when you send it out, since it's the ad hoc, it's going to come back to you in that instance. You can confirm the vendor is correct.
Should they say a clarification on the ones that automatically go to the board members if they approve it? That's for our current finance.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so these are, like I said, all the instances where you need changes, something isn't right, you need to send to that one-off board number. That's how you guys are going to do it. So do you remember which tab it's under here? Yay! Got their workflow. And then I do assign ad hoc approver. And I know it seems weird, but once you get the hang of it, I think you guys will really like it. And ad hoc is a weird word for me, or weird term. It took me a while to get used to it. Just think of it as routing though. Routing, and then it's going to come back to your queue for final approval most of the time, which is great too, because then you can confirm that the updates were made correctly. You can verify that it's all correct, and then you just click approve from there. So it's pretty neat. So did you guys have any questions about ad hoc though before I go on to just kind of explain these different tabs here? Okay, and I think it will just take a bit of time. Once you guys get in there and play around with it, it'll make more sense too. But yeah, so just remember, workflow is your friend. You're changing the workflow, and you're going to route it to someone to fix something. So down here, So these are just additional tabs with invoice information. So image, you can see it's been set as the default the whole time. It's not going to change unless you change it. But this vendor tab too just has additional vendor information. So if you did want to look, you're like, hey, okay, that's correct, or oh, wait a second, this is not the office that we normally use, this remit to. So if that was incorrect, I would ad hoc it. Ooh. So just that's another way to verify. Line items, you won't really use this either. You always want to use the distribution tabs to put in your GL lines, but this is just another way where you can kind of view the invoice information. You won't have access to edit anything there, but just so you know what it's about. This workflow tab. So not only, this is the place also, yeah, where you can view the community if you didn't want to view the distribution tab. So it's not only where you define an ad hoc approver if you want, you can also see the workflow steps. So this is kind of cool. So I can see, okay, here's the sequence. These are the steps where it's highlighted in yellow. That's where it's at. So right now it's in my queue, and it's pending. So you could see it's in the training FSR West queue, and that's me. So I'm like, okay, it's me. But then when I route it, this is the standard workflow that's actually already set up in the system. So if this invoice was offered to go, and I was just doing a standard coding and approving, I can actually see where it's going to go to next. So it'd all be listed here. It's just for your information. You don't have to do anything with it, but it's kind of neat to just see it. Or if you're waiting on somebody, you can see where it's at too. You can see like highlighted, you can see their username here. It'll all be listed. Or the user, how we have it, vendor changes, insurance coordinator, since we have a qualified vendor. So that'll be kind of different depending on your scenario. Yeah. I was like, can we blank that out? He asked me before. Yeah, no, I'm kidding. So we have all the workflow here.
Something real quick, I'm gonna ask, because I know, I'm concerned from yesterday when I found this out, that we can have this, Brighton 2 on one side and Brighton and Wanda on another. That if you will double check as you're doing these, because you're gonna know the best, much better than we are, because we're gonna be getting this in files. And it's not like in the past where we could catch mistakes as easily as we could in the past. We're going to get fast files in, so we're not going to see necessarily that the one place it says Brighton and Wanda and the other one it says Brighton 2, or most important one, our KF. So if you would all, I would really appreciate it if you would take that on as your task, that you're going to make sure that you double check that before you approve it. That will make it very successful. If that doesn't happen, we're going to have some ugly things where we are paying out of the wrong HOA, and we do not want to do that. I'm sorry?
Yeah, I'm not sure. And then just going to the side here is the history tab. So this is really nice too. If you're like, where in the world is this, or where has it gone, or where is it, currently? You can also see that here. So we have history, and this is where we're also going to be guiding your board members. So if you have like those one-off situations or anything where you leave a comment for them, this is where we're going to say to go look. And same for you guys too. So if something is routed to your queue, and you're like, I don't understand why this was routed back to me because everything seemed fine, or something like that. So a lot of people that have been approving those unqualified vendors, they'll get these back in their queue. They're like, well, I approved this. If they look in the history tab, they can see that there'll be a note from the insurance coordinator saying, hey, like you still need to make sure that this person is actually qualified. You need to go through the actual steps of routing it to the correct person. Anything like that, notes for you are going to be in here as well. If you ever have a question of the invoice, that's why it's really important to use any comment section that you need to be really clear. And it will be the same for you guys too, like all different departments, because then you can just see here, and like, okay, dispute test invoice. I can see who stole on the invoices. I don't even know who this is. Looks like a new CM. But I'm like, oh, it's actually Brian that said it in dispute. Okay, so then maybe I would hope that he would put a reason why he did dispute if I was searching to see why it wasn't processed yet. So yeah, just history tab, super convenient. You can even see when it was uploaded in the system. Okay. And Jody has a question here.
I believe that the board members can see those comments, correct? So please be professional and whatever you write, just like see us win, because they're going to see it.
Yeah, it's a great point. So always use your discretion because board members can see this. So just pretend like they're looking over your shoulder when you are writing it. So.
Say what?
Yeah. Yeah.
Please don't.
Yeah. Yeah. So refrain from calling them names or like jerk better do it. Yeah. So it's gonna be listed here. Yeah. So it says that. But yeah, so super convenient. You can log in here to see. If you do just log a comment for the invoice in general and not have to ad hoc it or do anything. So if you're just approving in general and you have that board member flow set up where you don't need to manually ad hoc it, you're like, well, how do I just write a special comment to my board? You just come here. So you can come here, you could just, you don't need to type anything in these two fields. If you just want it in the history tab, you don't want to email to anybody, you just want to have it stored in the history, just use this comments field and type in anything you'd like. You're like, oh, this is pertaining, work order 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like check in the system. You can add anything here if you want it viewed in the history tab.
Just going to the next approver is different than the approve and comment up above.
Yeah, if you do want to do approve and comment, so that's a good point too. You actually do have the ability to comment, and that's the way to do it as well. So you can disregard all these if you're just doing approve and comment, because this can be confusing. Like you have to manually type in someone's email or you have to route it to somebody here. You don't have to. You can just, all you need to do is type in the comment here and submit. Because whenever we've seen these fields, like how many times a day do we see these when we're doing emails? So it's very natural to think, oh, I have to type something in. You don't have to if you're just approving. And you can just type it in here and submit. So same thing, it'll save in the history tab. Any questions?
Do that. Say, you type an email.
Mm-hmm.
What's going in that email?
So if you have an email, it'll have the comment and it'll have invoice information. If they're not somebody that has access to Avid, so if it's a vendor, they're not going to be able to click on the invoice and access our system. So it's that basic invoice information, like that header information, and whatever you put in the comment here.
But if they do.
If they do, yeah, then they can click on the invoice and see the actual invoice. They won't be able to approve it or do anything special, but that's a really good point for those who just want to view invoices and they don't want to approve. You're like, hey Bob, this is that special invoice that you wanted to see. So that's you can do that.
Last week we had a question of who does it say it comes from when we were talking about it in the preliminary. It will say it comes from you. It will not say it's from Avid. It'll say on their email, it'll say it came from, Jody.
And Jody was just letting everyone know too that if you're wondering who it's coming from, for those of you guys online, it does look like it's coming from your email. So it's like, oh yeah, this is from Jody. Because sometimes people disregard when it looks like it's from Avid system or like, who is that? So they will see a familiar name on there. So you can use email here. You don't have to if you just want to log a comment, but it is a handy feature. Or if you do have a vendor, maybe you're making that final approval, maybe it was a long process and you want to just give them a heads up, like, hey, this is in the approval process, so you're going to get a check relatively soon, So you can use it for things like that, and that will all be stored in the history too. Just remember, history can't be edited or deleted, so use your discretion. With those, even if they're mean vendors or board members, and it'll all be saved for you.
Can we go back to workflows? There was a question earlier about workflows. Are they based on the current signing requirements? And the answer is yes, with a caveat. We do not have workflows because it just doesn't work in the system that say things. And Kathy, you and I were talking about this one the other day, that say contracts are signed here. Or over 500, but contracts and utilities and the pool bill are signed here. It's going to be either they don't sign at all, and it's a signer, which will be on the check, which is what our preference is, obviously. It's going to be that the board approves everything, and it can be one board member or two board members. If they wanted more than two, I guess they can have that. We can just set up a workflow for that HOA that it keeps going to as many board members as they want. Or it's going to be that the amount of the invoice determines it. So it's going to be, if it's under 500, it would be just here. But if it's over 500, it would go to a board member. It can be 500, 1,000, and 2,000. Okay? So there's no qualifications. You cannot qualify a vendor. And the reason for that is, let's say it's ABC Plumbing, and your board always wants to sign ABC plumbing bill. If I qualify that vendor, everyone's board has to now see all ABC's plumbing. The vendor is global, and you can't say qualify for the club for ABC plumbing. There's not the ability to do that. It's for everybody.
Just to say it a little different, right now, a few of our associations, the vast majority that co-sign, it's a dollar amount. Anything over $1,000, $2,000, and we'll accommodate that. There are a few that say, you can sign everything except the landscape extras and the pool extras and stuff. We can't do that anymore. Okay, it'll be a dollar amount. If they want to do that, we're going to pick a dollar threshold, and we'll see everything over that threshold. We can't pick and choose bills or vendors.
And then going back to how, you say there needs to be 2 signers. But I have 4 of my board members that can sign.
There's nobody signing a check here. It is just review process. When we say 2, it's a different vernacular now. We say 1 and 2 signers. 1 signer just means we sign, the board doesn't sign. Okay? Anything over 1 signature will be routed to that board member. They're going to tell you, 2 people always have to review this bill, which is in essence signing the bill. Then we're going to have to set up the 2 of them signing. The vast majority of ours is just going to be reviewed by 1 other board member.
No, but that's my question though. But I have 4 board members that are 10 signed.
We're only going to have designated
You
1
give us
approver.
2 that you want, or 1 that you want, whatever.
It's easier if you were to say, hey, I need 1 of you.
Yeah, you can't send it to 4 and hope 1 will respond.
And that's a good note too, because when we do the board training, it's really important that they attend. And I can also have one-off with board members, like we'll have a few trainings set up, but it's really important that they do attend, because we do have some board members, we offer several trainings. I'm offering like one-off trainings, but it's really hard, I know, to get people to want to learn and do things. But some have already had invoices routed to them, and now they're just kind of sitting there because they don't know what to do. So just, if you have the chance to talk to your board and be like, hey guys, here's whenever we have the schedule ready for that, just make sure that they really understand how important it is. They're like, hey, these invoices will not be processed if you do not know how to approve it, and or they don't have to approve it. They can also route it back to you if they have an issue with it. But it's just really important that they attend, because otherwise, like, no checks for you. So
basically, any check over $2,000 is going to get mailed out.
No, not even close.
Okay.
I'm like, that was last question.
No. If they sign it, if right now it's signed by 1 signature, which is me, there'll be no review by the board at all, no matter what the amount is.
Okay.
Okay? If they have a second, if right now we mail the check to the board, we'll be setting up a threshold, a dollar threshold for your board, then it will go from you to them, whatever that dollar threshold is, then approved. That's it.
They don't get a check, right?
There's no checks. You will not touch a check again.
That's what I said. So if it's under $2,000, they will not get a check.
If that was your board, if that was the threshold, if that was that for, if Mission Trail threshold is, but if,
Okay, so yes, I guess the question was, if their threshold is $2,000, everything below it, they won't see. They don't see, just like we do now. I sign it and it goes out. They don't see it. Okay, it'll be the exact same process.
Yeah, that 2,000 is in the system, but I have one that is higher. So that would be a one-off.
No, we had to pick the parameters, and we picked whatever one Mary Beth just picked 3.
That's Sky Ranch. I can say, tell Steve to call me at Sky Ranch. So kind of their threshold for anything that we approve or write checks on, and so it's going to be 2,000.
Yeah, it's going to be 2. All we have is the 3 preset. Keep in mind, right now, utilities and management fees are outside the system.
Oh,
Okay? Utilities and management fees, eventually we hope to be in the system, but now are out. So we'll be cutting that check and mailing it to the board if they have to co-sign a management check.
and utilities, even when it comes into the system, will still remain on auto pay. So they would be viewing it and approving the coding, perhaps. Rick, that would be one of yours. Belmont would have the same thing.
Instead of they just review,
Oh yeah, board members. Board members can just go in and search for an invoice number. They won't have a set. Yeah. No. I mean, like through email, you can, and they can open the link. But
we're trying to work out with utilities. most of them are auto pay. We don't want to stop that. We don't want to wait on a board to approve it and get there before a late fee. That's why utilities are held right now. We're trying to make sure, what's best for the board. We might have it worked out before it gets to the boards in a month. I don't know.
And something that we'd have recommended though too for the boards, like for those that you want to see the utilities, because a lot we're excited about that, is just showing them on that invoice search screen. So just search for the vendor and then all the statements will come up for all the utilities. Like once they're in the
If we're running
if they're in there, yeah. So not right now.
So if we have management fees as a directive to be paid automatically,
then they will be paid up. Then
that's
we'll
what
cut a check. Then we'll cut a check there, deposit it. I'll sign it, deposit just
Even
like
if
they
it's even if it's over 20,000.
over two. It depends on your board signature account. So the one you just gave examples, anything over 2,000, they approve or they sign. So if the management fee is over 2,000, they will continue to approve or sign. I can't say it's going to apply to everything with my check.
But if we have it in their blend that they, everything over 2,000, they approve, but management fees are automatic.
If they want an exception on management fees, I can make the exception because we're still manually cutting. I can't make an exception for the rest because they have to pick common thresholds.
Can't make an exception for a reserve counter.
Reserves are something reserve transfers. How are we going to do that?
We're handling that.
Okay, so reserve transfers are going to be standard.
Those are jumping in the process.
The reserve, you were gonna start to say, that's something that goes with reserves, are they still getting the due approval?
That's what we're working on right now. It looks like we're moving to a system where we're going to, when the payment is due, we're going to send the board member like a resolution signed by two board members authorizing us, CLS landscape reserve check, blank dollar amount, authorizing us to move money from the reserve accounts to the operating account. Then the check will be released out of the system. Okay, that's what we're going through. If you can picture, guys, reserves are a sticking point for us because you can picture going to a vendor and saying, these invoices email over here, but if it's a reserve expense, send it over to this office. It'll never happen. So they're going into the system. So our alternative is for us to recognize it, approve it, and then pull it out of the system and manually cut a check here, which becomes then kind of a hunt, peck, and probably errors. So we're going towards, when you coded towards reserve, sending this resolution to the board, two board members electronically. We mail it to them, saying, sign this, another one sign it, and we cut it out. We move the money, cut it out of operation, which is how we do it with a lot of reserves now.
And something that you guys can utilize as well, just depending when you get your processes all settled, is this attachment tab as well. So this information does not export to Genarch, so it won't go to Genarch's history, but in Avid at least, if you do need to have any attached documents, you can add it here. Especially if you need board member review or just for your reference within the team, you can upload any file documents here. Different file types work, generally PDF can sure would be best. You just browse and attach.
No, I don't even have, I haven't.
Anything you need to have in there. And then you don't need to worry about having to check it every time, the number of
Really?
attachments
Oh, no, I missed that.
with that invoice.
I'm actually into the system.
So you'll have it here, so just for reference, even if it's
No.
correspondence that you want to say like, hey, we have this to the board.
I have no invoices to approve, but
Server numbers, you can have that.
well, I decided to log in and
Go
try
back
it.
to the first for a second and Santa Clarita in particular.
I don't pay attention to what they say.
Closely, please. In the
Because I
past,
had to change all kinds of crap in here.
managers
It was all screwed up.
reserve item to the 8,000.
Well, I changed my whole profile
And then my
settings.
accounting staff had
So,
translated.
I mean, my
that
name,
to
I was
the
already
correct account.
populated in there, but they had it all
Obviously,
wrong.
under this
So.
system, there's no translation. There is no situation ever that you code to an account that begins with 8,000. You can take that as a black and white rule. You always, if it's a reserve, it's 3,001 with the sub-account name 95% of the time, unless you happen to have a cost center, like yours or Beaumont, you're going to be a special situation because yours are going to be in a different entity even. I think Creekside has one, Main Street, there's maybe 5 or 10, but never an 8,000 account. We're hoping the 8,000 account will not be there and you will get an error if you attempt to code to an 8,000 account. Yes, the 8,000 from the budget
Everybody
comparison.
understands the reason you do it is when you go to your budget comparison under reserves and they're broken down, they all start with 8,000. know that, you can understand it, but that's, oh,
There's a question about this.
They're all 3,001 with a sub account, so it's gonna say 3,001 gross. It's not, they have a reserve statement with their, in their folder currently, and we'll send it with the, budget comparison, they will have the reserve statement that tells them what it is.
Another question back here? Another question?
And whatever, exactly, and street.
Sorry, go ahead.
What's the difference? It's whatever's on your reserve statement.
Another question is, if they enter 3001.
Well, and there's another space for the sub account, which will be row, it goes right to it, yeah.
What was the question? So,
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm wrong. It's 3001 dash, or period.
Period,
Right.
you would put
Period.
2001
Yeah.
period, and then whatever the little provide.
okay, so when we give you your, budget comparison, we will have the code for the reserves with that.
Okay, so yeah, we'll keep on going, so we'll get you guys out of here on time. So that was just that last attachments part here, so we're almost done here. You're like, yes. But up here, so now we're just gonna go through the invoice actions that we kind of went through before. Go home, that's how you always want to just go back to the main page instead of doing this back. Backwards, then you also refresh your data and stuff. We found just click home, it'll bring you back to that home summary screen. Skip. So if you come in, you're like, oh, I just don't want to do this one right now. You can skip to the next one, and it'll bring the next one in your list for you, which is kind of neat. So you don't have to go back to the home page. You can just skip along, and it'll bring up the next invoice in your summary. Save is something that you always want to do. So if you're ad hocing or routing that invoice to anybody else, and you've coded it, you always want to do save, and then you ad hoc it. If you're just doing a standard coding and approving, you don't have to click save every time. The approve does the save and approve and comment. But anything else, if you're trying to change that future pay date or that invoice posting date,
I'm doing everything they
or
told me
something
not
like
to do.
that, you want to just do save. And it's good to
See,
do
I'm
this
on
as
the system
default while you're doing this
They
too.
said
I'm
don't go on
a
until Monday
saver. I
because
like to
nobody
do
can
it just
get
in
it
case.
Well,
Something
guess
happens.
what? I got in there.
Well,
of course you would. Well, because I
and
knew
you
they
can
had to
still
have
check-
some
yeah,
information.
Yeah,
So I
so
went in
save,
and
it'll,
changed my whole
it's not
profile
routing it to
because they had
anybody
it all
or
wrong.
approving it, it's just saving the data that you
They
put.
had
So
me
it's a
on
great
the
question, it doesn't
East
go
Coast.
anywhere.
Yeah, they're gonna know.
But where it does
But I
go
don't
is
care.
when if you click approve and comment or approve,
Yeah, because
it's going
it
to
says
your
last
queue.
updated by Jim
However,
Rush.
if you forgot to code it or the allocated amount wasn't fully distributed, you'll get a little error message up here. It's not the most apparent one. It's kind of like black. It's like, hey, you didn't put the description in. Or so it is required to have something in that field. Or hey, you didn't allocate the whole amount. It will tell you what needs to be fixed before it will fully approve. So don't just click approve, and then if it doesn't go away,
Not right now, I
it,
can't.
just click approve. And then normally we see a dispute button here. So remember, all that does is just move it and create that disputed invoice queue for you. So that's all it does. Void, however, essentially deletes it from the system. And so you don't even have to worry about it because it's not going to be there.
If it's truly something that's wrong and void, that you want voided, you ad hoc it to, we're gonna tell you who to ad hoc it to, and you say, hey, this says, Mountain Meadows Patio, but there's one across the street called Mountain Meadows Patio 2, and it belongs to them. No one's ever gonna pay it, get rid of it. So you would ad hoc it to us so that we can make sure in accounting that is taken care of.
So disregard, pretend it says dispute. There you go, because you'll see that instead. And then lastly here is the print screen. So this is a pretty convenient thing too, a nice way. You always want to allow options for pop-ups from the site too. So it's going to come up, it's going to have a lot of history of the invoice, so a quick little way to view it. So look at all we've done. So you can see all those different tabs and information. So that's just that. It's not the invoice image, but it's the history. So just something really quick to have for reference if you need to. And then help is available here as well. So those are just the invoice actions that you have. Like that's the whole summary screen. But did you guys have any questions with these? Just before I show you how to generate a report, just showing the invoice image and everything. So these are pretty self-explanatory. Just remember to be careful with that dispute button. And just remember to save things a lot when you're coding. or if you approve it in like the same day and stuff. But I feel like within like a week they can get it too. Like how this is processed of if it's the invoice fulfills all those requirements, the Avid team sees it. They upload it to your queue, so you'll have it the next day. If you code it that day and it exports, then it can go off to AvidPay and then a check can be cut and mailed out. So they should technically have it within the week if everything goes smoothly.
Yeah, let's not quote any time.
Yeah.
Anybody,
It really does.
expectations.
Yeah.
And the vendors will have choice when they get this letter. So if you get phone calls about from the vendors, okay.
Yeah. So we'll have that, and then so we do have our invoice search here. So we did this before, but so the way that you're going to generate reports within Avid is just very simple. So if I have a season that I want to run before, and this is going to list all vendors, I believe, but you guys will only be able to kind of pull information for if they're linked to your particular community. But all I'm going to do is just do search, and then based on my search results, you'll see there's this new section that comes up. And I can either view them individually. I can't edit or do anything. This just pulls them up. But I can either export as a CSV file, which is really convenient. It'll list all the information here. Or I can actually create a report. And this is where it kind of walks me through, like, which ones do I want this full report on? I want to do these three because I want the invoice image. And I want all that information I saw on that print screen previously. You can see all these invoice header information here. Do I want the history, the summary, the images? I could do that. And then you just go along here and like, all right, looks good. Let's do it. And then I just do create report. And then it generates for me. I open it up. And you can see it was relatively quick, but here's the summary information. And this pulls up all the information for the invoices for me. So those are all our test ones, so they look kind of bizarro. But
The board would have access to this as well.
Yes, they can pull that.
You can see a lot of some of our board members, they want history or want 12 months worth of landscape bill or whatever. Here it is, fingertip.
And we're going to allow them to have the reports also, because I believe that Irvine just recently changed that and are allowing their community managers to have reports.
Oh, well, yes, we didn't give it to our training team yet, the report, so yeah, so they might be
So
changing that.
there are, because just like Jenner, actually there's more. There's pages of reports.
Yeah, and it'll be in
reports. So, you'll have a tab, so you'll be able to access those as will the board. You will only be able to access for your association. I had a question about that. If Martha is managing Sutton Place right now, and it goes to Jennifer next week, can she, when we assign it to Jennifer, she no longer can access it, is that correct?
Yeah, she can no longer access it, so
Only
if you're on link,
when she is, okay.
but what is nice is that, once Jennifer is linked, Jennifer will have access to all the history and all the invoices. So if you have, 10 invoices in your queue and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I don't have time to process these before we transfer the account, they won't just be stuck in another queue. They'll actually just transfer right over to you. So it'll show right in there. But that's correct. If your account is not linked or, signed up with that association, you can't do searches on it, unfortunately, or, pull up any invoices or process them. But that's generally, we do have a bit more, just a couple other things to go over for those who are supervisors, and who deal with new hires, and everything like that. But other than that, this is Avid in a nutshell. And I hope that you guys really like it. Once you get in there, I think it'll be good. It'll be quicker. We have a question here too.
I have two questions. If by some chance your voice comes in and there was an address change by that vendor, is that something that will automatically download in Scanark with a change, or is that something we still need to physically look at and make the change in Scanark?
Yeah, so any vendor invoice changes or address changes will have to be done through Genark in order for them to reflect in Avid.
And then when we make it in Genark, it'll sync into that.
Okay, the other question was, when we do the reserve resolution, and that's the actual resolution that's given to the reserve bank,
You're not going to do that. Accounting is going to do that.
so is that process still the same, like right now?
We haven't figured out the reserve part yet. That's just coming to light on it. But yeah, right now, a lot of you have this thing, it goes to the bank, it takes on time, that process will probably still be the same. Although what we're going to try to do is look at combining that with some online, being able to basically wire the money back and forth together.
Okay. As you were going through these screens, were you actually using your
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Mail that check.
This is exactly the speed, and it is dependent on internet connection, but on the whole, like, I see how it's quickly able to go from screen to screen. So.
This is primarily a K-hop question. You buy a lot of things online. How will that marry up to the question? Setting up account purchasing things out of it. Maybe you do almost all.
They'll show on the credit card or on their debit card, so it won't go through Avid. I mean, there's possibility that we can use this to call that vendor and say, we can set you up to get an ACH, or if you have a Visa merchant card, you could get it that way. So that may take care of some of our issues with that. Let's work on those individually.
Okay. All right. Timing on this, everybody understands. The letter went to the boards, obviously. A letter will be going to vendors next week. Okay. It's important to understand vendors, they have three options. One is this merchant MasterCard, which a lot of them have. It's a merchant account. The other is an ACH payment where it goes directly into the bank account. And the third is a check. The letter going to them will push them towards the MasterCard merchant. Okay? Understand if anybody complains, they can't get a check. Okay? But their first push is to get them to sign up for the merchant card. The second push is ACH. The third is by check. Okay? By design, they're trying to eliminate the check. Okay? Over speed and timing to the vendor, and it's more work. Okay? So understand your vendors are going to get pushed first for the MasterCard, second ACH, then to check. Important to understand that if somebody complains to a board member or at a meeting, this is, a MasterCard, no, you have the option to check. Okay? It's important to know that, but it's also important to understand the way they're going to push them. Okay? So you will or may hear some pushback at a board meeting or something, or a board member calls and says, is it true they can't get it? No, they can get a check. Right? Now, we don't want to volunteer that immediately to the vendors because a lot of them will go check. We're still trying to push them the other way to make it at a 2,000. Right? So that letter's going out. Then we're going to get a letter out to the board. We're going to have three training sessions in early January. Okay? Where we're going to sit and do exactly what we did here on how to do this. Okay? Starting after the vendor letter, we will be live. Okay? They will start sending their bills. They already are, to be honest. I think we've had to pull about 200 of them out of the Irvine email queue for Avid. Because obviously some vendors that work for both Upland and Irvine started sending their Upland invoices there already. Okay? So this will be live. So probably starting a week from now, you might get an email saying you got an invoice. It won't be live for the board, meaning the second approval, till mid-January. What's going to happen now is you're going to approve, let's say 10 days from now, you'll approve it. Then it's going to come back to accounting. We're going to manually cut the check here and handle it as we have been the next 5 days or so. Meaning we're going to cut the check, send it to the board for a signature. We're going to bypass the Avid payment portal unless it's under one signature. Okay, so if right now they're one signature, you're going to approve it. It's going to go through the Avid system as it's going to happen forever now. If it's the second signature, we're going to pull it. Everybody understand that? So if your association's one signature, you approve it. It's going to go to accounting. They're going to say, yep, there are funds there. Avid's going to pay the vendor as they've elected to pay.
Caveat, if they have updated insurance, still hold, it would not get sent to Avid if they do not have updated insurance. Just like currently, the Genera system will not cut a check if we do not have an updated insurance and the vendor is marked to have it.
Okay, but that's something that accounting would be doing. So, okay, so everybody understands vendor letter next week. You'll start getting queues probably 10 days from now. If you approve it and it's under one signature, it's going to go out. It's two, we're going to cut the check here till about mid-January. Meanwhile, your board's been trained, and when they're online, we should be fully functional late January.
Yeah, as soon as it's finalized and it goes out.
And in between here and January 15th or so, we're going to be getting a list out of all the email addresses on who it is that should be going to. We want to make sure those are right, okay, versus sending them to some old board member or the wrong person or all that blah, blah, blah.
no, those letters that we got last week that we're all still holding on to, those are for the board.
Right, but we were waiting for.
Why are we holding on to it?
I thought we were going to have a list of, who the board members were that we could verify.
Okay, the question on the education letter is a little confusing. We gave it to you separated by association. You're to give those to those associations as your board packet comes up. They've already been emailed to everybody. But it was just a particular letter, whether they're one signature or more than one, as to which letter they got. There's two letters. So no, you're free to give those.
In December, can we send them individually?
If they're not meeting in December, should we send them individually? I'd say if it's early January, you can hold it, but if it's late January, yeah, I'd probably get them out of here. Okay, so they're not too far behind. Keep in mind they got an email with the education letter, but some read it, some don't.
Couple things to keep in mind. Yesterday, we went through this training. The queue that Oscar and Jody and I will be handling that they get that they don't know what to do with, theirs is in the thousands. So this is going to be huge for a house. And when we start this, I like to do, it's going to be Oscar, Jody, and I. So if you go to Tori and say what's happening, she's not going to have any clue. So it's going to have to be Oscar, Jody, and I, and obviously January, a tough month for accounting to start. So they're saying their queue is thousands. I'm hoping that we can get our vendors to enjoy it. They obviously are large. But if we can get that, so we will be trying to clear that as quickly as we can. Comes in this month, we need approved and taken care of.
Okay. So what Mary Beth's saying is push your vendors to have the right name of the association and really have that number. That's what's going to, there's concerns about all the uplands and all the K-house. If they have the right number, I'd say that's a great chance, because if I'm reviewing a bill, if I'm Avid, I'm going to look for that number, because that number is unique. I don't have to cipher the name. A number is going to be the key. So that's going to be the key. And if you do have mistakes, they're going the wrong place, you got to get the vendors to use those numbers. What Mary Beth's saying with the thousands in her queue is we're getting all these bills in. Avid goes to look at the bill and they can't figure it out. So then it goes into a queue. That's where there might be 1,000 invoices saying who's ours. Okay, so it's going to be real important you push the vendors, and they're getting a letter saying here's what it needs to look like. So we push them in that direction. That being said, guys, there's going to be bumps. The next 60 days is going to be bumpy. Okay. The reports we're getting from Irvine who are beyond the 60 days is it's well worth it, and they all love it. Like I said last week, is where's this been all our lives type comment. Okay. So we're going to get there, but it's going to be bumpy. These, vendors aren't going to understand it, and they're going to get pushed back and forth. Oh my gosh, you're screwing the vendor. No, we're not. Those kind of comments, and this is all good. There's no bottom line. They can get it the same way. They can get it faster if they want.
So just to be clear, the vendors will have the email it to you guys, because they'll have no access to Avid.
Yeah, they will have
access. So they'll still call us and say, where's my invoices? We now would not have to call accounting so often.
Yeah, so you can do like the workflow tab or the history tab. Yeah.
Right. But it's not supposed to be Avid. So they just get the amount transferred to.
Yeah, the question was about the merchant account, but yes, they sign up, and it's, I don't know what that will, to be honest. However, it's just an account where they pay, and they basically, it's going to be ACH directly into their corporate account. Similar to the ACH going to the bank account, this goes into a MasterCard. A lot of larger vendors have it, and it's the way they get paid immediately.
And that's the one that they're pushing.
That's the one that we'll start with, and they're going to go to the ACH, then they're going to go to the check. Because the MasterCard, if they have it, or if they're big enough size of vendor, it's very convenient. It manages part of their accounts receivable for them. It's quite a feature, if they have it. But the majority won't, so we're going to push it.
And their cost on that is determined by their agreement with MasterCard. So if they're small MasterCard users, probably will pay more. If they're huge, I believe it's less. I believe that's how MasterCard. Avid is not involved. The ACH doesn't have a charge to it. It goes to Avid.
Right, but both are elected. So the MasterCard is elected, the ACH, which they have to pay for, is elective. Okay, it's not a fee that we get. But the advantage there is they don't wait for it. There's no lost mail. It's deposited directly in the bank account. There's no going to the bank, that kind of stuff. It's their choice. Vendors make their own choice. If they have the MasterCard or want to sign up, their choice. If they want to get ACH, it's their choice. Want to get checks, their choice. Not ours. Okay? They can do what's best for them. I'm saying they're gonna push them in that order, because it's, their mind is quicker, easier, electronic, they're not cutting a check.
The vendor says, what, just $39.40 shows up in my account? There is information saying what it's for. So I don't know exactly what it looks like, but it's gonna say something like Royal Oak Villas, invoice 123, $47. You are not, they do get information, so it's not, it's like a check.
Well, I think we're all set. Well, and just, the only ones we need to stay just for a couple of minutes are, those of you that are supervisors in the process or are a part of any of the hiring processes or anything like that. But otherwise, thanks so much, guys. Thank you. Let's see if anyone's
We're gonna get emails that say these are sitting out there and have never been approved, and I'm gonna come to you and go, Sonia, Jim Smith isn't approving anything. You're gonna go, oh, Jim Smith, back it up a week ago, reassign that to Mandy Jones, something like that.
Or I can come in, I mean, like after the meeting, or they resign, so they give me a message for work.
Oh, you're welcome.
We have any department where you update ESPN with the board members, and then quickly get the report, and then be updated from that.
Okay, but then I would,
For those of you online, we'll see a couple more minutes. We're just waiting for everybody to
Just like that, those who have the report, that's how we're gonna start.
okay.
That's perfect, that's gonna be on, yeah.
No.
No, I'm fine, I'm breathing.
I can just feel it in my throat.
I feel like I'm on a meat hook.
Signing that we've got.
Okay. We're waiting, Sonny, we're waiting for one more person to come in?
Yeah,
We can.
we're, Cat,
That's what.
always trips away. Yeah, we're waiting on Dana.
Okay, wonderful.
Oh, and we basically have changed them, but yeah, I mean,
She's saying, what is our preference? And our preference is that we, have anyone who's signing now that we're asking, we wanna ask them, can we have it just be Glenn? And in lieu of that, they get to approve before. But I think we have to clarify.
yeah, I think Glenn, you probably wanna weigh in if you want them going to the board saying, will you change it to you approving and not having, yeah, I'm sorry, go back.
What we're saying is she's talking about those board members who sign their own checks. And like the letter said, and what our preference is that it's your signature on there and they approve, but I'm telling you. So what should she have her, employees tell the board?
I've already told them, we're doing it in lieu of it, and that's the way we're pushing it. There's no other communication, we're just doing, I want somebody to come back and push. I don't want if I offer it, they're all gonna say, send me a check.
Yeah, that's what I was trying
So
to
I'm
do.
I'm just doing it.
Some official verbiage in minutes to make the change. Was, okay.
And when I assigned the 2,000, 1,000, it is stricter than their current approval requirement. Because they had, you can sign blah, 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 and then we want to do over 2,000. Now it's only over 2,000. So it is stricter. And I think I gave Guy Radgen, if he has any issues, tell him to call me. His signing requirements are ridiculous.
Didn't sign anything over 2,000, obviously.
Yes, approved, exactly. Yeah, so you, but, just because they were okay with us,
No.
approved, approved, approved,
It was
yeah.
2 hours.
That's a break, but I don't know when you get back.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm.
All right, we're gonna move that bit. Okay, go ahead.
So we'll just, we'll get started here, and then so then you guys can have your day. So just a few things, just for the hiring process. So you guys might already be familiar with the new employee notification kind of form that you need to fill out, or the like open requisition form. Just note that there's going to be a new field at the very bottom of the form now. So it's going to ask you what that person's role in Avid Invoices. So if they're only to access the system at all, you can put that, you just put not applicable. But if they are going to access it and they're just a manager or anything like that, they're primary approvers, that's what that equates to. Then also know if there's something more like a district manager or a secondary approver, meaning that they're not going to get every single invoice for a community. It's just going to be ones like reimbursements or things like that. And then you can also note if they're a regional director or VP. So just take note of that final step, because it's really important that they're initially created correctly, so that the invoices will route them as they're supposed to. So we have that. So just keep note of the new little field there. Something else that you'll need to take note of too are those proxy approvers that we were mentioning before. Some people might just get really excited about it and they're like, oh, I can make 8 proxy approvers on my account, or things like that. So your guys' approval will be, necessary for that to be linked as a proxy approver. So just make sure that, you understand if they're out for more than 3 sick days, if they're terminated or anything like that, just make sure that you reach out. I think maybe to Mary Beth or Jody right now, and let them know, like, hey, we need to link so-and-so as a proxy approver immediately, because if somebody's terminated, especially if they leave or win the lottery, way to make sure that they're linked up right away so those invoices have a place to go. So just keep in mind of that. And usually just the supervisor is going to be the one who is the proxy approver in most cases. But that really will be your guys' discretion, and just make sure that people understand the supervisor's not there to just process everything that was in their queue. It's there to just keep an eye on things and process anything that's necessary coming through. And then just lastly too, it's just a note to really just keep an eye out and check your queue. If you're getting those invoice notifications, like, hey, you have something in your queue, you want to go in and just make sure that you do approve reimbursements on a timely basis. If you can go in, once a day and just check and see, or just keep an eye out for that summary email if you have anything in your queue, because the reimbursements will go directly to a higher level for approval. So, and especially when it's employee reimbursement or board of directors reimbursement, or credit card purchases, those are all dependent on your guys' approval. So you want to make sure that those are taken care of and in process.
And we're also going to have a dollar threshold. We're going to have any bill over, we're going to pick them out $20,000 or something you're going to see. We can change that by account, so maybe they have a little higher threshold. Maybe for Chad it's $25,000, and because otherwise we'll be looking at every landscape bill. But it's important, some of the bigger ones will be hitting your queue after between the manager and the board? Is that where it is?
Yeah. Well, if it's board, they don't do it. It's
that's right.
only if it's just one, then they do it. If it's board, it goes manager, board, otherwise manager, supervisor.
And you guys won't have to code these or anything. They'll be all set for your approval. You'll have to review them.
But our check cut, say for instance, reimbursement, or is there a place where it's a bank, where it's an employee getting reimbursed?
No, this is an employee being reimbursed by an association.
Oh,
So it's just going to be a check.
Yeah, so it's just a check.
and I was paying reimbursements for that person.
Approval for credit card purchases like in Jayhawks, where they use their credit cards all the time.
Personal credit cards or local?
They have their business association credit card.
Right.
Am I going to be now reviewing those?
Well, yes and no.
They-
If they're we could certainly set it up that you approve the credit card. But no, there's no way that Avid is not getting involved. They can go put anything they want on the credit card. Paying the credit card will be where, if it was over a threshold, you might get involved. But they can have gone and done anything they chose on their credit card, and Avid has no control.
That card's going to be hard because they're going to have to take that $8,000 bill and break it up to the GL.
Yeah, this is where I think we should go to the GL.
On the higher RBA, how should we manage our winning control?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, so this one wouldn't quite apply. Yeah.
It's going to be slightly different for us, Debbie. They have more.
Yeah, they've got a bunch of presidents we have done.
Yeah, they have.
So you're going to be assigned as if you're over that manager, you're going to be assigned that person.
Supervisor or manager, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Title driven.
Yeah, so sorry about that little
That's okay.
verbiage there. But essentially that's it. And it's just, keeping it in your mind, like I need to go in and approve things or make sure that I'm processing and improving. But essentially that's it, just making sure that you put the note in the open requisition form, doing the reimbursements, just making sure that you're on top of that, and the proxy approvers too, to just use discretion and well, you're like, haha, Mary,
That form, you won't be setting ours up. I think
is it different?
I think NEMA or we will. So somehow that form's gonna have to be routed to, probably me at this point in time, or possibly NEMA, because they, just like so they won't be setting up our users here. So I'll talk to HR about that.
Yeah, it's usually, I think, Lisa Pasqualidis is the one that you, so have, just check that out with her.
Well, I know that when we have a hire, it comes back. Like I get an email when I hire someone and it has a notification that it has all this stuff. Okay, this has been done, and it tells us, okay, this still needs to be done on your end. So we're gonna get that.
I'm probably understood actually. Because we have a lot of vacations coming up.
Okay,
And I'm feeling that in 10 days if we get hit with some of this.
yeah.
Who is actually assigning the property? Is it the person, the property manager assigning it to the supervisor? Or does the supervisor go in and pull?
Well, it's going to be determined, so you'll have to just tell Mary Beth or Jody. So it'll have to be the Avid portal admin setting the proxy approver. The managers will never, or anybody else aside from them, will have the ability to set the proxy approver.
Yeah, I think it's through. I'll have it on our agenda for supervisor meeting Monday. Where transfer.
Yeah. And then what's nice about this too is that you can just set an expiration date. So if they're coming back a certain day, and if it's both the proxy approver and the manager, they can still do their account. It's not like taken away from them. Just both people can view and approve at the same time, which is good to know.
By January, I envision having, as soon as we have the budget in, a packet sent to each manager with theirs that has the budget comparison, the reserve statement, and a cheat sheet, basically.
We're going to need it before that. I understand the new budget, but we've got 2 weeks between here and that new budget.
Well, I'm thinking we can keep their folders for now. Because it's a big job to do this, and the budgets are going to change very quickly. We'll talk about it. But, and do you think we could get a 55-gallon barrel in the parking lot and burn the folders? I think that would be a great
One employee.
So I will have that out to you, and obviously, it'll have to teach you things like remember, never 8,000, and just all the stuff we've talked about. That remember you do this, and so that you'll associate it with every HOA. So I'm working on Sky Ranch. I can pull that up and know what I'm doing wherever you are. You can keep it in your email or your purse. Whatever, doesn't matter to me how you do it.
And the reserve stuff will be broken down by
You'll have the reserve statement. Yes.
We'll have the reserve one that they give us.
Our people. That's the
So
reserve.
I have my stuff.
Oh, you want the reserve of thing from?
Well, the reserve, what the reason is that we have, I have a reserve study that has a bunch of subs underneath roofs. So it'll say flat roof, blah, 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 blah.
Yes, we're going to get that.
Yeah, we're getting that. Yeah, we currently put in their folder.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Not the whole reserve, but just the
Just that
whole.
one.
Yeah, we put that in the folder.
Well, no, you guys are all set.
Thank
You can have fun with it next week. Yay. Thanks, guys.
I don't know if you're rushing out of here, but we're having a lunch that the one vendor comes over.
Oh, nice.
You want to stay an hour to
Yeah.
Oh,
Really?
I appreciate it.
It's really good food.